Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, the rest of the apartment was sparse, bare walls, no photos, no personal touch. But the bedroom closet was crammed with one thing, dozens of the same exact dress, all the same size, all on identical hangers. At the bottom of the closet, a single shoebox held cut-out newspaper photos of different women, all wearing that dress. Detective Laurel Mercer stood in the center of the studio apartment, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. The heat had been turned off for 3 weeks, ever since the landlord realized the tenant hadn't paid February's rent. It was now mid-March in the small town of Oak Ridge, Minnesota, and the winter's grip remained tight. "Anything else?" she asked the uniformed officer who had first responded to the landlord's call. "Nothing much, ma'am. No wallet, no phone. Kitchen's practically empty except for some cereal and canned soup. Bathroom's got the basics. It's like nobody really lived here." The young officer shifted uncomfortably. "Except for that closet, that's just weird." Mercer nodded slowly. "And the name we have is?" "Thomas Rader rented the place 8 months ago. Paid cash for the first 6 months, then started paying monthly, always on time until February." Detective Mercer walked back to the closet, examining the navy blue knee-length dresses with white collars. Simple, modest, almost like a uniform, exactly the same, identical in every way. She ran her fingers through the fabrics, counting 37 dresses. The photos in the shoebox were all different women, ages ranging from what appeared to be late 20s to mid-40s. Some were clearly newspaper clippings from the obituary section. Others looked like they had been taken clandestinely from a distance. In each photo, the woman wore the navy dress with the white collar. "Get forensics in here," she said quietly. "And I want to know everything about this Thomas Rader." Thomas Rader didn't exist, not really. The social security number he'd provided to the landlord belonged to a man who died in 1994. The driver's license was expertly forged. The employment reference checked out to a burner phone that now led nowhere. "A ghost," Mercer muttered, staring at the incident board 3 days later. The photos from the shoebox were now pinned up alongside names they'd managed to identify. 12 of the 34 women had been identified so far. 5 were confirmed deceased. Natural causes, according to official reports. 2 heart attacks, 1 stroke, 1 car accident, and 1 from complications of pneumonia. The remaining 7 identified women were alive and scattered across 3 states. Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, all working in caregiving professions, nurses, hospice workers, elementary school teachers, 1 librarian, and none of them knew each other. The dress was the only connection, a simple navy dress with a white Peter Pan collar, sold by a mid-range department store chain throughout the Midwest. Not custom-made, not unique. Just ordinary enough that it wouldn't stand out. "Maybe it's his mother," suggested Detective Harris, Mercer's partner. "Maybe she wore a dress like that." Mercer shook her head. "It's not about the dress. It's about what the dress represents to him. These women, they're selected for something specific." The first woman they interviewed was Diane Holloway, 42. A 4th grade teacher in Minneapolis. She seemed genuinely confused by their questions. "Yes, I have that dress. It's comfortable for teaching, professional but not stuffy," she said, nervously touching her hair. I bought it maybe 2 years ago. I have 3 of them actually. I rotate them during the week. Have you noticed anyone watching you, following you? Maybe someone who seemed to take special interest in your routine? Mercer asked. No, nothing like that, Diane replied, then hesitated. Actually, there was something strange last month. Someone left flowers on my car. No card. I thought maybe it was from a parent or something, but when I asked around, no one knew anything about it. It was the same with the other women. Small, seemingly innocuous events. Flowers left anonymously. A gift card to a coffee shop slipped into a purse. A book they'd mentioned wanting suddenly appearing on their desk, and none of them had noticed anyone paying particular attention to them. Mercer couldn't shake the sense of dread that was building. This wasn't just a stalker. This was something more methodical, more patient, something that had been developing for years. The breakthrough came when they finally identified the 6th deceased woman. Alina Walsh, 38, died of apparent heart failure 2 years ago in her home in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Except the medical examiner's report had noted some anomalies, trace amounts of a compound that could mask certain poisons. Not enough to trigger a homicide investigation at the time, but enough to raise questions now. Mercer requested that the other deceased women's cases be reopened, their deaths re-examined. Meanwhile, a partial fingerprint from the back of one of the photographs led them to a name, Victor Sloan, a man with no criminal record but whose name appeared in an odd place as a volunteer at 3 different hospitals across the Midwest over the past decade, hospitals where 3 of the deceased women had worked. It's him, Mercer said, staring at the grainy staff photo they'd obtained from Riverside Memorial, an unremarkable man in his 50s with thinning hair and glasses. The kind of person who blends into the background. He's been hiding in plain sight. The next 48 hours were a blur of search warrants, interviews with hospital staff, and deep background checks. Victor Sloan had moved constantly, changing jobs every 2 years or so, always in positions that required minimal background verification, custodial staff, delivery services, volunteer work. And at each location, there had been a woman who wore that navy blue dress, a woman who later died unexpectedly. It's his ritual, the FBI profiler explained when they brought him in. He selects women who embody some quality he's fixated on, likely something maternal or nurturing, given their professions. The dress is what connects them to his idealized figure. He courts them from afar, inserts himself into their lives subtly, and then. The profiler didn't need to finish. They all understood what came next. The problem was finding him. Victor Sloan had vanished when they'd gone to his last known address, another sparsely furnished apartment rented under a different alias. The landlord said he'd moved out 3 weeks earlier. Mercer had all the living women placed under surveillance. If his pattern held, he wouldn't be able to stay away from them for long, especially now that he was startled on the move. People like him became more dangerous when cornered. It was on the 7th day of surveillance that Officer Trent spotted a maintenance van that had been parked too long near Sarah Lawson's house, a 37-year-old hospice nurse in St. Paul. The van's company logo didn't match any registered business. When they approached the vehicle, it sped off. The ensuing chase ended with the van crashing into a guardrail, but when officers reached the vehicle, the driver was gone, having fled into the wooded area beyond. The search of the van revealed a chilling collection, a navy dress with a white collar neatly folded, a bouquet of white lilies, and most disturbing of all, a small medical kit containing several vials of a clear liquid later identified as a complex compound that mimicked the symptoms of cardiac arrest. 3 days later, in the early hours of the morning, Sarah Lawson's security system detected movement in her backyard. The officers stationed outside apprehended a man attempting to access her home through a basement window. Victor Sloan, or whatever his real name was, didn't resist arrest. He seemed almost relieved. In the interrogation room, he sat quietly, hands folded on the table. He looked ordinary, tired, like someone's aging uncle. "Why these women?" Mercer asked, laying out the photos one by one. "Why the dress?" For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke softly, almost tenderly. "They were kind, they were all so kind, just like her." His eyes grew distant. "My mother wore that dress every day to work. She was a school nurse, the kindest person you'd ever meet." His voice cracked slightly. "She took care of everyone except herself." "What happened to her?" Mercer asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Heart failure. She was only 42. He touched one of the photos gently. "Nobody helped her. Nobody noticed she was suffering." His expression hardened. "But I notice everything now. I see the signs, and I help them before they suffer too long." In the end, forensic evidence connected Victor Sloan, whose real name turned out to be Philip Merrick, to 7 deaths spanning 15 years. Each woman had been carefully selected, observed for months or even years, and then poisoned with a compound that deteriorated quickly in the body after death, appearing to be natural heart failure. His apartment, with its collection of identical dresses, had been a shrine, a place where he could surround himself with the essence of the women who reminded him of his mother. The case files remained open on several other suspicious deaths that matched his pattern but couldn't be definitively linked to him. No one could say for certain how many women had died at his hands. Sarah Lawson now keeps her navy dress with the white collar in a box in her attic. She can't bring herself to wear it again, but she can't throw it away either. "Sometimes I still feel watched," she told Detective Mercer 6 months after Philip Merrick's arrest. "I know he's locked away, but it's like once you've been seen by someone like that, you can never quite feel invisible again." Detective Mercer understood. She often found herself looking at ordinary people differently now, the quiet man reading in the coffee shop, the helpful volunteer at the hospital, the unassuming neighbor who always waves but never speaks. The most terrifying monsters, she had learned, were the ones who looked just like everyone else, the ones who could hide their darkness behind the most ordinary faces. Behind closed doors, in closets full of identical dresses. Crime 2, when the new homeowners tried to light the fireplace, the smoke filled the room instantly. Chimney sweepers were called in. What they found inside wasn't soot. Behind the bricks, packed tightly, were journals, hundreds of pages, each one documenting a different name, a different face, and a matching method of disappearance. For Martin and Elaine Wexler, the Victorian house on Maple Street in the small town of Cedar Grove, Pennsylvania, was supposed to be their fresh start. They had left behind the bustle of Philadelphia, tired of the noise, the crowds, the constant movement. Cedar Grove, with its population of just under 10,000, promised the quiet life they had longed for after 30 years in the city. The house had been on the market for almost 2 years before they bought it. The realtor had explained that the previous owner, Dr. Howard Lamb, had passed away at age 84, leaving no immediate family. The house had been maintained but remained unoccupied while distant relatives settled the estate. The price was surprisingly reasonable for a 5-bedroom Victorian with original hardwood floors and stained glass windows. November came quickly that year. The leaves had already fallen, and the first frost painted the mornings with silver light. Martin suggested they light a fire in the living room fireplace, something they had never been able to do in their city apartment. Elaine found some old logs in the garage that must have belonged to Dr. Lamb, arranged them in the hearth, and struck a match. Within seconds, thick gray smoke began pouring into the room. Martin rushed to open windows while Elaine doused the small flames with water. The smoke detector blared as they coughed and waved arms frantically, trying to clear the air. "Something's blocking the chimney," Martin said once they could breathe again. "We'll need to get someone to look at it." 2 days later, Jeremy Mackenzie from Cedar Grove Chimney Services arrived in his dusty work van. In his late 50s, with calloused hands and a soft-spoken manner, Jeremy had been cleaning chimneys in the area for over 30 years. "Seen it all," he told the Wexlers as he set up his equipment. "Birds' nests, raccoons, even a beehive once." But what Jeremy found that afternoon, as he maneuvered his camera up into the darkness of the chimney, wasn't wildlife. About 4 feet up, the flue was completely blocked, not with leaves or debris, but with what appeared to be a deliberately constructed wall of bricks and mortar. "Never seen anything like this," Jeremy said, his voice noticeably shaken. "Someone sealed this chimney from the inside." The police came that same afternoon. Detective Laura Simmons arrived first, a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She was followed by 2 officers and a forensic technician who brought in tools to carefully dismantle the brick obstruction. It took them 3 hours to safely remove the barrier. Behind it, tightly packed, were 13 notebooks of varying sizes. Some had leather covers, others were simple composition books. All were wrapped carefully in plastic. Detective Simmons wore gloves as she opened the first journal. The handwriting was neat and precise, the ink blue-black. The first page was dated September 17, 1983. Subject: Catherine Reynolds, age 23, occupation: waitress at Linden Diner, lives alone, no pets, works late shifts. Usual route home follows Birch Avenue through Memorial Park. Most vulnerable between 11:35 p.m. and midnight on Tuesdays and Thursdays when the park is empty. The next several pages detailed Catherine's daily routines, her habits, the clothes she wore, who she spoke to. And then, on page 12, October 29, 1983, subject acquired, method, chloroform, no witnesses, transportation successful. Subject maintained in basement facility for 17 days. Psychological experiment 1 completed. Subject disposed of in accordance with protocol. No evidence remains. Detective Simmons closed the notebook slowly. Her face had grown pale. "Get me everything you can find on Dr. Howard Lamb," she told one of the officers, "and check missing persons reports from 1983 onward, starting with a Catherine Reynolds, 23, waitress." The Wexlers were asked to stay with relatives while their new home became the center of a major investigation. Teams in hazmat suits combed through the basement, removing concrete sections of the floor, examining every inch of the old house. Dr. Howard Lamb had been a respected figure in Cedar Grove. He had worked as a psychiatrist at Cedar Grove Regional Hospital until his retirement in 2005. Neighbors described him as quiet, polite, and intensely private. He rarely had visitors and kept mainly to himself, though he was known to volunteer at the hospital's annual charity event. "I've lived next door for 30 years, said Margaret Fields, 72. He would wave if he saw me outside, maybe chat about the weather, but that was it. Always dressed nicely, even to get the mail. I never once heard anything strange from that house. As detectives worked through the 13 journals, a pattern emerged. Each one documented a different person, always someone who lived alone or whose absence might not be immediately noticed. The entries were clinical, detached, as if Dr. Lamb had been conducting some kind of twisted research. The most recent journal entry was dated March 2020, just 2 months before Dr. Lamb himself had died of an apparent heart attack. His body had been discovered by a housekeeper who came once a week. Catherine Reynolds had indeed been reported missing in 1983. Her case had gone cold after months with no leads. So had the cases of at least 7 other people whose details matched those in the journals. Some had never been reported missing at all. The basement of the Victorian house yielded no human remains, but luminol tests revealed traces of blood that had been meticulously cleaned long ago. Behind a false wall, investigators discovered a small room containing an old examination table with restraints, medical equipment, and a cabinet of pharmaceuticals, many of which had expired decades ago. In Dr. Lamb's study, they found hundreds of academic journals and books on human psychology, trauma responses, and fear. His own published work, several papers on anxiety disorders, gave no hint of his apparent secret activities. Detective Simmons spent weeks reviewing interview recordings from Dr. Lamb's colleagues and patients. None reported anything suspicious. He was remembered as competent, if somewhat distant, a man who kept strict boundaries between his professional and personal life. There were no red flags, Dr. Alina Carter, who had worked with Lamb for 15 years, told investigators. He was methodical, yes, precise in his work, but nothing that would ever suggest this. The 13th journal remained a mystery. Unlike the others, it contained no name, no routines documented, only a single entry. Final subject identified. After all these years, I believe I have found the perfect candidate to complete my work. When fear becomes prolonged, when it ceases to be an acute response and instead becomes a chronic state of being, the human mind undergoes fascinating transformations. This subject will be my legacy. The entry was dated April 3, 2020, 1 month before Dr. Lamb's death. No further information was provided, no name given. 6 months into the investigation, authorities had identified 11 of the 13 suspected victims. DNA evidence was scarce due to the passage of time and the meticulous nature of the crimes. Dr. Lamb's journals never explicitly stated how he had disposed of his victims, referring only to protocol and complete dissolution. The Wexlers never moved into the house on Maple Street. It remained sealed with police tape, a dark landmark in a town that had never imagined such horror could exist within its boundaries. Detective Simmons continued to search for the identity of the final subject long after the case file was technically closed. She would sometimes drive past the empty Victorian house late at night, wondering about the 13th journal, wondering if somewhere in Cedar Grove someone was still living in fear, unaware that their stalker had died before completing his final experiment. And sometimes, looking at the old chimney from the street, she wondered why Dr. Lamb had sealed those journals away. Was it an attempt to hide his crimes, or something more disturbing, a time capsule of horror deliberately preserved for someone to find? The answer, like the name of the final subject, remained hidden in the mind of a dead man. And in Cedar Grove, people began locking their doors at night, eyeing their neighbors differently, aware that sometimes the monsters aren't hiding under the bed or in the closet. Sometimes they're writing notes about you in a journal, watching from behind drawn curtains, waiting for the perfect moment to make you disappear. Crime 3. The room had clearly been lived in. Unmade bed, scuff marks on the floor, a half-eaten apple on the nightstand. But the inside of the door was smooth, no handle, no latch, no way to open it from within. Scratched into the wooden frame just below eye level were the words, "This isn't the first time." Detective Sarah Daniels stood in the doorway of the small guest room, her eyes slowly scanning the space that had become the center of what the local newspaper was calling the Hillside Mystery. Located in the basement of 47 Linden Drive, a charming two-story colonial in the quiet suburb of Oakwood, Missouri, this room wasn't visible from the outside. No windows, just walls painted a soft beige, chipping in the corners. The house belonged to Eliner and Richard Mason, a couple in their 60s who had lived there for nearly 30 years. Eliner Mason had been found dead 3 days ago on October 17, 2023, her body discovered by her husband when he returned from his weekly poker game. Richard told police he found her at the bottom of the basement stairs, her neck broken. He claimed it was an accident. She must have fallen while carrying laundry down to the washing machine. The medical examiner initially agreed, but then came the anonymous tip. "Check the guest room," said the caller, their voice disguised. "The one without a doorknob." When officers arrived with a warrant, Richard Mason seemed confused but cooperative. He led them to the basement, past the laundry area, to a door tucked behind a shelf of preserves. "This is just storage," he explained, fumbling with a key. Eliner liked to keep it locked because of the electrical panel. The room beyond was no storage space. It contained a twin bed with rumpled sheets, a small dresser, and a nightstand. The officers noticed immediately what the caller had described. The door had a deadbolt and handle on the outside, but nothing on the inside. Detective Daniels asked Richard Mason about this peculiarity. That's how it came," he stammered. "This was meant to be a panic room when we bought the house. The previous owners installed it." Public records show the Masons had built the house themselves in 1994. There were no previous owners. In the 3 days since that discovery, the investigation had revealed little about who might have been kept in the room. No missing persons reports matched the timeline. No DNA evidence had been processed. The room itself had been meticulously cleaned, save for the recent signs of occupation. What they did know about Eliner Mason painted a picture of a woman who kept to herself. Neighbors described her as pleasant but private. She volunteered at the local library on Tuesdays, tended her garden meticulously, and rarely entertained guests. Richard was more sociable, known for his involvement in the community theater and his weekly poker games with friends. They had no children. Detective Officer Collins interrupted Daniel's thoughts. "We found something." He held up a small notebook discovered beneath the mattress. The pages contained dates going back 3 years with brief notes. Day 142, quiet today. Day 187, asked about family again. Day 255, threatened to scream. As Daniels flipped through the journal, written in neat, feminine handwriting, she felt a chill. This was Eliner's writing. They had samples from her library volunteer log. The last entry was dated October 16, the day before her death. Day 1097 says she's done waiting. God forgive me. The investigation took a disturbing turn when officers began checking the soil in Eliner's prize-winning garden. Under the rose bushes, they found a collection of small objects: a child's hair clip, a a college ID card so weathered the name was illegible, a tarnished locket containing a photograph of a young woman. Richard Mason maintained his innocence. Eleanor had her secrets, he told Detective Daniels during his third interview. We all do, but she wasn't capable of hurting anyone. His eyes remained steady, his hands calm. For a man whose wife had died tragically and whose home was being torn apart by police, he seemed remarkably composed. The officers canvassed the neighborhood again, this time asking specifically about visitors to the Mason home. Most neighbors confirmed what they already knew. The couple rarely had guests, but Mrs. Patel, who lived across the street, remembered something unusual. About every 6 months or so, a young woman would visit, she said. Different one each time, it seemed. They would arrive by taxi, usually with a small suitcase. I assumed they were relatives or perhaps students renting their spare room short-term. When asked if she ever saw these women leave, Mrs. Patel paused. Now that you mention it, I don't recall seeing them depart, but I'm not watching the house all day, of course. Records from the local taxi company confirmed 5 pickups over the past 3 years, bringing passengers to the Mason residence. The women had been picked up from various locations, the bus station, the community college, once from a women's shelter in a neighboring town. All had been arranged by phone, paid in cash. The case took another turn when police found a series of emails on Eleanor's computer. She had been corresponding with someone using a temporary email address. The messages discussed hosting opportunities and strict house rules. The final exchange, dated just weeks before her death, contained a troubling line. The previous guest left unexpectedly. The room is available again. Detective Daniels ordered ground-penetrating radar for the garden and surrounding property. Meanwhile, forensic technicians examined every inch of the guest room. Under ultraviolet light, the walls revealed faint handprints around the doorframe, as if someone had repeatedly tried to push or pull it open. Richard Mason's poker alibi checked out. His friends confirmed he was with them from 7 p.m. until shortly after midnight on the night of Eleanor's death. The medical examiner placed the time of death between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. He couldn't have been physically present when she died. But something about his calm demeanor continued to trouble Detective Daniels. During their 4th interview, she decided to take a different approach. "Tell me about Eleanor's childhood," she asked. Richard seemed surprised by the question. "She didn't have much of one," he said after a moment. "She grew up in foster care, different homes every few years. It left her with issues, need for control, fear of abandonment." "And how did you meet?" "At a support group," he answered, "for people with difficult pasts." That evening, Daniels received a call from the lab. The technicians had found something in the guest room walls, a small cavity containing a plastic bag with dozens of driver's licenses, all belonging to young women, dating back 15 years. Some matched missing persons reports from across the state. The ground-penetrating radar revealed no bodies in the garden, but it did show disturbed soil in an area behind the shed. Excavation revealed a large plastic container buried 3 feet down. Inside were women's clothes, neatly folded, and personal items cataloged in plastic bags, each labeled with a name and date. When confronted with this evidence, Richard Mason's composure finally cracked. "She saved them," he whispered. "She said it was so she wouldn't forget. Every woman who stayed in that room and then left." The full story emerged gradually. Eleanor, traumatized by her unstable childhood, had developed a pathological need to care for others, to keep them safe by her definition. She would identify vulnerable young women, runaways, addicts, those estranged from family, and offer them a place to stay. But her nurturing would turn to control, and the guest room would become a prison. Richard claimed he discovered what she was doing 10 years into their marriage. By then there had been 3 women. I should have reported her, he said, but I loved her. She convinced me she was helping them, giving them structure, keeping them from self-destruction. And then she would let them go, she promised. But she never did. Detective Daniels assembled a timeline, 17 women over 15 years. When they became too difficult to control, or when Alina tired of them, they would simply leave unexpectedly. Their belongings would join the collection in the container behind the shed. The question that haunted the investigation, what happened to these women? No bodies had been found. Richard maintained that Alina would drive them to bus stations in different cities, give them money to start over, and make them promise never to contact anyone about where they had been. He claimed not to know more. The truth about Alina's death finally emerged when police discovered a hidden camera in the basement stairwell. The footage from the night she died showed Alina backing down the stairs, hands raised defensively. At the top of the stairs stood a young woman with long dark hair, her face contorted with rage. This was the guest who had scratched the message on the door frame, who had finally found a way out of her prison. The investigation is ongoing. The young woman hasn't been found. Richard Mason awaits trial as an accessory to kidnapping and false imprisonment. And in Oakwood, Missouri, neighbors cast uncertain glances at one another's homes, wondering what secrets might be hidden behind their walls. The guest room had no doorknob, but eventually someone found a way out. As for what happened to Alina Mason's 17 guests over the years, that remains Oakwood's lingering mystery. Some investigators believe they may truly have been released far from home, too traumatized or ashamed to come forward. Others fear a grimmer fate and continue to search properties connected to the Masons. Detective Daniels keeps the notebook found under the mattress in her desk drawer. Sometimes, late at night, she rereads the final entry. Day 1097 says she's done waiting. God forgive me. And she wonders who in the end was asking for forgiveness and from whom. Crime 4, every framed picture in the house had been vandalized, from baby photos to wedding portraits. A knife or sharp object had been used to scrape out just one face in each image. Different people, different scenes, always the same person removed. The problem, no one could remember who it was supposed to be. The Mercer family home sat at the end of Oak Ridge Lane in the quiet suburb of Pine Haven, Connecticut. The 2-story colonial with its white picket fence and well-tended garden had been in the family for 3 generations. From the outside, everything about the residence spoke of normalcy and domestic peace. Rebecca Mercer, 42, was a respected high school English teacher. Her husband, Thomas, 45, worked as an accountant at a firm downtown. Their 16-year-old daughter, Ellie, was on the swim team and maintained a 3.8 GPA. April 17, 2023 began like any other Monday. Rebecca woke at 6, made coffee, and prepared breakfast while Thomas showered. Ellie dragged herself downstairs at 6:30, scrolling through her phone. The family ate together, discussing weekend plans and upcoming obligations. Thomas left for work at 7:15. Rebecca drove Ellie to school before heading to her own workplace. Nothing suggested this day would permanently alter their lives. When Rebecca returned home at 4:30 that afternoon, she immediately sensed something was wrong. The front door was unlocked, though she was certain she had secured it that morning. Inside, nothing appeared disturbed at first glance. No signs of forced entry, no obvious theft. The television, laptops, and jewelry were all untouched. It wasn't until she reached for her phone to call Thomas that she noticed the framed family photo on the end table. In the image from their summer vacation to Maine 2 years prior, a ragged hole appeared where someone's face should have been. The paper had been methodically scratched away, leaving frayed edges. "That's strange," Rebecca murmured to herself, picking up the frame. She tried to remember who had been standing next to her in the photo. Thomas, Ellie, a relative. For some reason, her mind couldn't conjure the memory clearly. As she moved through the house, a chill ran down her spine. In the hallway, another family portrait hung slightly askew. Same strange defacement, one face meticulously removed. In the dining room, the wedding photo that had graced the sideboard for 19 years had been similarly altered. One by one, Rebecca discovered 17 photos throughout the house, each missing exactly one face. Most disturbing was her inability to remember who should have been in those empty spaces. When Thomas arrived home, he experienced the same unsettling amnesia. Both parents felt a strange sense of absence, as though someone important had been excised not just from their photographs, but from their memories. "We need to call the police," Thomas insisted, his voice tight with controlled panic. Officer Diane Walker and her partner, James Chen, arrived within 20 minutes. They walked through the house, documenting each vandalized photograph. Unlike typical break-ins, nothing had been stolen. No other property was damaged, just the systematic elimination of a specific person from every family image. "Do you remember who should be in these photos?" Officer Walker asked, studying Rebecca's face carefully. "That's the strangest part," Rebecca admitted, her hands trembling slightly as she cradled a mug of tea. "I know someone should be there, but I can't picture who." Thomas nodded in agreement. "It's like trying to remember a dream that's slipping away. I know the memories should be there, but they're just not." The officers exchanged concerned glances. "And your daughter, where is she now?" Officer Chen asked. "Swim practice. She should be home by 6, Rebecca answered. As the officers continued their investigation, they discovered something even more troubling. In Ellie's bedroom, beneath her pillow, they found a small paring knife with tiny paper fragments still clinging to its blade. When Ellie returned home, her reaction to the defaced photos was different from her parents'. Rather than confusion, her face registered something closer to relief. When asked directly about the knife, she didn't deny its presence in her room, but claimed no memory of placing it there. "Ellie, do you know who should be in these photos?" Officer Walker asked gently. The teenage girl's gaze drifted to a space on the living room wall, where a rectangular outline showed where another frame had once hung. "Jason," she whispered, the name emerging with difficulty, as though she were translating from a forgotten language. The name hung in the air. Neither Rebecca nor Thomas showed any recognition. "Who is Jason?" Thomas asked, his brow furrowed. Ellie's eyes widened. "You really don't remember, my brother, your son." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Rebecca looked at Thomas, who stared back with equal bewilderment. Neither had any recollection of having a son named Jason, yet the moment Ellie spoke the name, a strange sensation flickered at the edges of their consciousness, like an echo without an original sound. As the investigation deepened, Detective Maria Soto was assigned to the case. A 20-year veteran specializing in family crimes, she approached the situation with methodical patience. Her first step was to search public records for evidence of this allegedly forgotten son. What she found was disturbing. Birth records confirmed that Jason Thomas Mercer had indeed been born to Rebecca and Thomas on March 12, 2005, making him 18 years old. School records showed his enrollment at Pinehaven High until February of the previous year, when he abruptly withdrew. His social media accounts had been deleted. No credit card activity, no phone records, nothing to indicate his whereabouts for the past 14 months. When confronted with these documents, Rebecca and Thomas reacted with genuine shock and distress. How could they have forgotten their own child? Medical examinations revealed no neurological abnormalities that might explain such profound amnesia. Psychological evaluations suggested no signs of shared psychosis or dissociative disorders. Neighbors and family friends, when interviewed, showed similar patterns of confusion. Many initially denied any knowledge of a boy named Jason Mercer, only to express disbelief when shown photographs recovered from cloud storage accounts that clearly showed him participating in family events. "It's as if he's been erased," Detective Soto remarked to her colleague one evening, spreading photographs across her desk. Not just physically from these pictures, but somehow from their memories too. Ellie, meanwhile, became the key to unraveling the mystery. During a private session with a forensic psychologist, Dr. Abigail Landau, she revealed fragments of memories concerning her brother. Jason was different, she explained, her voice soft but steady. He always saw things that weren't there, heard voices that no one else could hear. Mom and Dad took him to so many doctors. Medical records eventually confirmed that Jason had been diagnosed with early-onset schizophrenia at age 15. His condition had deteriorated rapidly in the months leading up to his disappearance. The last documented incident, according to Ellie, occurred on February 23, 2022. Jason had become convinced that photographs were dangerous, that they could capture more than just images, that they could trap souls. He said he found a way to free himself, Ellie recalled. He said he would make it so no one would have to remember the burden he had become. As Detective Soto pieced together the timeline, a troubling hypothesis emerged. Jason had apparently discovered the family's emergency cash reserve and purchased a bus ticket to Boston. From there, the trail went cold. No credit card usage, no social media activity, no confirmed sightings. More puzzling was the collective amnesia that seemed to have affected everyone who knew him, everyone except Ellie. And even she admitted her memories had begun to fade before she took drastic action. "I was forgetting him too," she confessed. "I would wake up each morning with less of him in my mind, so I scratched him out of the photos before I could forget which face was his. I thought if I destroyed the images myself, maybe I could hold on to the real memories longer." Psychological experts brought in to consult on the case were baffled. Some suggested a rare form of dissociative disorder affecting multiple people, perhaps triggered by trauma. Others proposed more esoteric theories about selective memory suppression as a coping mechanism. None could adequately explain how an entire community could simultaneously forget a person who had lived among them for 18 years. 6 months into the investigation, a security camera at a homeless shelter in Portland, Maine captured footage of a young man who bore a striking resemblance to Jason Mercer. By the time local authorities arrived to investigate, the young man had moved on. Similar reports emerged from Halifax, Nova Scotia 2 months later, then nothing. As the case grew colder, the Mercer family struggled to rebuild their understanding of themselves. Rebecca and Thomas attended therapy sessions, working to recover memories of their son that remained stubbornly out of reach. Ellie transferred to a boarding school in Vermont, unable to bear the strange emptiness of her home. Detective Soto kept the file active, checking databases monthly for any sign of Jason Mercer. On her office wall hung a copy of one of the vandalized family photos, the scratched-out face a constant reminder of the boy who had somehow removed himself not just from his home, but from the collective memory of everyone who had known him. 3 years later, a postcard arrived at the Mercer residence. No return address, no signature, just a single sentence written in neat, precise handwriting. Some people aren't meant to be remembered. The case of Jason Mercer remains officially classified as an unsolved missing persons investigation. But in Pine Haven, Connecticut, residents sometimes report a strange sensation when passing the Mercer house, a feeling that they've forgotten something important, something just beyond the reach of memory, a face they should recognize but can't quite picture, a presence that lingers in the spaces between what is seen and what is remembered. And in photo albums across town, if one looks closely enough, one might notice the occasional unexplained gap where someone should be standing, a negative space that draws the eye but refuses to be filled. Crime 5, there were only 2 people living in the home, but the toothbrush holder in the master bathroom had 6 slots, each one filled with a brush, different colors, different wear. 4 of them had dry blood at the base. Forensics confirmed something chilling. None of the extra brushes belonged to the couple. The Becketts had lived in the small town of Millfield, Oregon, for nearly 15 years. Jonathan, 43, was the manager at the local hardware store, dependable, well-liked, with a tendency to remember everyone's home improvement projects and ask about them weeks later. His wife, Sarah, 41, taught 3rd grade at Millfield Elementary. Former students, now grown, would still wave to her at the grocery store. They had no children of their own. Their craftsman-style home on Elmwood Drive was modest but meticulously maintained. Jonathan had installed the white picket fence himself. Sarah tended to the hydrangeas that bloomed abundantly each spring. Neighbors described them as quiet but friendly, the kind of couple who would collect your mail when you were away but never pry into your business. On Wednesday mornings, Sarah would meet her younger sister Melissa for coffee at the Cornerstone Cafe downtown. It was their ritual, a midweek moment to reconnect. When Sarah didn't show up on October 12, 2022, Melissa assumed she'd forgotten or had a school emergency. She sent a text, "Missing you at coffee, everything okay?" No response. By evening, after 6 unanswered calls, Melissa drove to the Beckett home. Jonathan's SUV was in the driveway. Sarah's blue Subaru was parked beside it. The porch light was on, but nobody answered the door. Through the living room window, Melissa could see the television was on, playing to an empty room. Officer Daniel Walsh was the first to arrive after Melissa's 911 call. As a 12-year veteran of the Millfield Police Department, he knew the Becketts casually. The front door was unlocked. Inside, nothing seemed disturbed. 2 half-empty coffee mugs sat on the kitchen counter. The dishwasher was running. A pot of beef stew simmered on low heat on the stove. "Mr. Beckett, Sarah, it's Officer Walsh," he called out, moving cautiously from room to room. The master bedroom was undisturbed. The bed was made with hospital corners, Sarah's doing, neighbors would later report. A novel lay on her nightstand, bookmark neatly placed about halfway through. Jonathan's reading glasses were folded beside his alarm clock. It was in the ensuite bathroom where Officer Walsh found the first incongruity. A toothbrush holder with 6 slots, 6 different toothbrushes. He photographed it before calling for backup. The house revealed no signs of struggle. No blood, no forced entry, no bodies, just an empty house with 6 toothbrushes and 2 missing people. Detective Amara Rhodes took over the investigation by Thursday morning. She had transferred to Millfield from Portland 2 years prior, seeking the quiet life of a small town. As she moved methodically through the Beckett home, she noted the oddities that began to accumulate. A calendar on the refrigerator showed appointments regularly scheduled through December. Sarah's lesson plans were neatly arranged on her desk, prepared for the remainder of the week. Jonathan's wallet and keys were in a small ceramic dish by the front door, exactly where he always left them, according to Melissa. People don't just vanish without their wallet, their phones, their cars, Detective Rhodes murmured, examining the toothbrushes again. Lab tests would soon confirm that 4 contained traces of blood at the base, old, dried blood that had accumulated over time. DNA from the bristles would reveal more unsettling information. The extra toothbrushes belonged to different individuals, none matching any DNA in the system. The Beckett's digital footprint offered few clues. Their browsing histories were mundane: recipes, home improvement videos, teaching resources. Their bank accounts showed no unusual activity. Their last purchases were groceries from Wilson's Market on Tuesday afternoon. 1 week into the investigation, Detective Rhodes discovered a hidden folder on Jonathan's computer. Password protected, it contained hundreds of detailed notes about their neighbors, times they left for work, when their lights went out each night, which day they put their trash out. The surveillance extended to dozens of Millfield residents. "It doesn't make sense," Melissa told Detective Rhodes during her 3rd interview. "They were the most normal couple I knew, almost boring in their predictability." But as Rhodes dug deeper, she found peculiar patterns. The Becketts had lived in 4 different towns across 3 states before settling in Millfield. In each location, they had stayed exactly 3 years and 7 months before moving. Millfield was the exception; they had stayed much longer. The hardware store owner confirmed that Jonathan had called in sick the day of the disappearance, the first time he had missed work in 7 years. Sarah's principal received an email that morning stating she had a family emergency. The email came from her account but lacked her usual sign-off: "Warmly, Sarah." When forensics finally processed the toothbrushes completely, Detective Rhodes stared at the report in disbelief. 2 belonged to the Becketts. The other 4 contained DNA that partially matched missing persons from 4 different states, all from towns where the Becketts had previously lived. All reported missing during the time the couple had resided there. On day 12 of the investigation, a UPS driver delivered a package to the Beckett home. Addressed to occupant, it contained a single toothbrush, purple, new, and a handwritten note that read, "We've moved on, don't look for us, someone else will take our place." The package had been sent from a shipping store in Boise, Idaho. Security footage showed a woman who resembled Sarah, but with dyed red hair and glasses, mailing it 3 days after the disappearance. As detectives executed a more thorough search of the Beckett property, they discovered a crawl space beneath the house that had been carefully concealed. Inside were 6 shallow depressions in the dirt floor, each approximately 6 feet long and 2 feet wide. Only one contained physical evidence: a single pearl earring that would later be identified as belonging to Alina Winters, a 38-year-old librarian who had disappeared from Bristol, Connecticut in 2014, during the exact period when the Becketts had lived there. The crawlspace walls were lined with plastic sheeting. Industrial-grade cleaning supplies were neatly arranged on a small shelf. A drain had been installed in the center of the dirt floor. 2 months after the Becketts vanished, a young couple, the Murrays, purchased their home at a sheriff's sale. They painted the walls, replaced the bathroom fixtures, and told neighbors they were drawn to Millfield's safety and community feel. The wife taught kindergarten. The husband worked remotely as an IT consultant. Detective Rhodes drove past their house occasionally, noting the new curtains, the different car in the driveway. She wondered about the bathroom, if they'd replaced the toothbrush holder with the 6 slots. To this day, Jonathan and Sarah Beckett remain missing. No charges have been filed. No bodies have been recovered from any of their previous residences. The FBI maintains an open file, cross-referencing missing persons from small towns across America against the Becketts' known locations. Sometimes Detective Rhodes wakes at night thinking about those 6 toothbrushes, about how the blood had accumulated at the base of 4 of them, slowly over time, from bleeding gums pressed just a little too hard during brushing, about whose mouths they had been in, about why the Becketts had kept them. And about the meaning of that final message, someone else will take our place. She drives past the former Beckett home less frequently now, but when she does, she notices how the Murrays' porch light is always on at night, how their curtains are always drawn at precisely the same hour, how their garden thrives just as the Becketts had. And she wonders about their bathroom and what might be in it, and about the crawl space beneath their feet as they sleep. Crime 6, it wasn't just locked, it was reinforced. Screws, nails, bolts, even wooden planks drilled into the wall. When they finally broke it open, they found jars, hundreds of them, each sealed, carefully labeled, with names. And inside, a single object per jar, teeth, fingernails, locks of hair. The discovery came 3 weeks after Alina Pritchard was reported missing from her home in Millfield, Ohio. A quiet suburb where neighbors knew each other by name, but rarely stepped beyond polite conversation at mailboxes or across driveways. Alina, 67, had lived in her colonial-style house on Sycamore Drive for nearly 40 years. A retired high school librarian, widowed for the past decade, she was described by those who knew her as pleasantly forgettable, a woman who smiled often but revealed little. Her absence was noticed first by Diane Kellerman, who taught English at the same school where Alina had worked. For 15 years, they had met every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. at Carla's Cafe downtown. Alina never missed, not once, until February 17, 2023, when her chair remained empty for the entire hour Diane waited. I called her twice from the cafe, Diane later told Detective Marcus Russell. Then I drove to her house during my lunch break. Her car was in the driveway. The newspaper was still in the plastic on her porch. That wasn't like Alina. When repeated knocks went unanswered, Diane used the spare key Alina had given her years before. For emergencies, Alina had said, though neither woman had ever defined what constituted an emergency. The interior of the house was undisturbed, no signs of struggle. Alina's reading glasses sat on the side table next to an open book, a cup of tea gone cold beside them. It felt like she had just stepped out of the room, Diane recalled, like she might return any second. But Alina didn't return, not that day, not the next. After 48 hours with no contact, her son Michael, who lived 3 states away in Colorado, filed a missing persons report. Detective Russell was assigned to the case, a veteran investigator with 23 years on the force. He'd handled dozens of missing persons cases, but something about Alina's disappearance troubled him from the start. The house was too perfect, he noted in his preliminary report. Not clean in the way a crime scene might be wiped down, but preserved, like a museum of someone's life with the subject mysteriously extracted. Alina's purse was found in its usual place by the door. Her medication remained in the bathroom cabinet. Her phone sat on her nightstand, fully charged. The last call had been to her son 3 days before her disappearance, a routine Sunday check-in that Michael described as completely normal. Her bank accounts showed no unusual activity. Her car keys hung on their hook in the kitchen. It was as if Alina Pritchard had simply evaporated mid-routine. The investigation proceeded methodically. Friends and former colleagues were interviewed. Medical records were examined for signs of cognitive decline or health issues that might explain a sudden disorientation. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses revealed nothing. For 2 weeks, Alina's disappearance remained a perplexing void. Then came the anonymous call. "You should check the pantry," the voice said, female, possibly elderly, deliberately disguised with a whisper. Alina kept secrets there. Before Detective Russell could ask further questions, the line went dead. The pantry door was located in the rear of Alina's kitchen, next to the refrigerator. On first inspection during the initial search, officers had opened it, noted the ordinary collection of canned goods and baking supplies, and moved on. But following the call, Russell returned with a more critical eye. The pantry was small, perhaps 6 feet deep and 4 feet wide. Standard white shelving lined 3 walls. Nothing appeared unusual until Russell noticed the slight discoloration on the linoleum at the back corner. A rectangular section, approximately 3 feet by 2 feet, showed subtle wear patterns different from the surrounding floor. "We need to pull up this section," he told the forensic team. Beneath the linoleum, they found a trapdoor, expertly constructed and nearly invisible when closed. And beneath that, a narrow staircase leading down to what property records had never indicated, a small basement room, roughly 12 by 15 feet. Along the far wall stood another door, this one secured with a complex array of locks, reinforcements, and barricades. It took the team nearly 40 minutes to dismantle the barriers before they could see what Alina Pritchard had so desperately wanted to keep contained. The shelving units inside the small, windowless space stretched from floor to ceiling. Each shelf lined with glass jars, mason jars, pickle jars, baby food jars, jelly jars, all immaculately clean and meticulously arranged by size. Each contained what appeared at first glance to be keepsakes: a child's tooth, nail clippings, strands of hair tied with thread, small personal items like buttons or earring backs, and on each jar a name written in Alina's precise handwriting. Martin Weller, age 9, 1978. Samantha Dunnigan, age 7, 1983. Tyler Coopersmith, age 8, 1991. The dates span more than 4 decades. Some of the most recent jars dated to just months before Alina's disappearance. "We counted 217 jars," Detective Russell would later testify, with 217 different names. Some contained multiple items from the same individual. The discovery transformed Alina Pritchard's disappearance into something far more disturbing. Records showed she had taught children's reading programs at the library before her retirement. She had volunteered at summer camps. She had been a substitute teacher across 3 districts. She had access to thousands of children over her long career. Yet as investigators began the painstaking process of cross-referencing the names on the jars with missing persons databases, an even more confounding pattern emerged. None of the children appeared to be missing. Every name they could track down belonged to someone who had grown up, moved away, started careers and families. Some still lived in Millfield or surrounding towns. When contacted, many remembered Miss Alina from the library or school. Some recalled her as kind, others described her as forgettable or just there. None reported anything inappropriate or threatening about their interactions. She always gave us butterscotch candies when we returned books on time, recalled Martin Weller, now 53, whose name appeared on one of the earliest jars. I remember her as quiet, maybe a little sad, but never scary. Forensic analysis confirmed the contents of the jars were indeed human remains, hair, nail clippings, baby teeth. DNA testing matched several to the individuals named on the labels, individuals who were very much alive and unharmed. It appears Alina was collecting these items, explained forensic psychologist Dr. Elaine Harmon, who was brought in to consult on the case. But not through violence. These are the kinds of things children naturally lose or discard. A tooth that falls out, hair from a haircut, nail clippings. The question isn't how she obtained them, it's why she kept them, and with such reverence. 3 months into the investigation, with Alina still missing, Detective Russell received another anonymous call. "Have you checked her son's basement?" The same whispering voice asked before hanging up. Michael Pritchard had returned to Millfield following his mother's disappearance. He stayed in a hotel at first, then with a childhood friend, claiming he couldn't bear to be in his mother's house with her fate unknown. When Russell and his team arrived at Michael's friend's home with a search warrant, Michael appeared genuinely confused. "My basement, I live in a third-floor apartment in Denver," he said. "I don't have a basement." But the investigation had uncovered property records showing that before moving to Colorado 5 years earlier, Michael had owned a small house on the outskirts of Millfield. The current owners granted permission to search, though they too seemed puzzled. They had renovated extensively and found nothing unusual about the property. In the basement, beneath an area now covered by carpet and a home gym setup, forensic technicians discovered a sealed concrete chamber approximately 6 feet by 3 feet, the dimensions of a grave. Inside, wrapped in layers of plastic sheeting and blankets, they found Alina Pritchard. She was alive, severely dehydrated, malnourished, but alive. Medical examination revealed she had been sedated, likely with medication found in her system that matched prescriptions belonging to Michael. She had been kept in a state of semi-consciousness, fed minimally through an IV for over 3 months. When she finally regained full consciousness days later, Alina Pritchard had only one question for the authorities: "Are my children safe?" Michael Pritchard was taken into custody. In his Denver apartment, investigators found journals detailing his growing paranoia about his mother's collection. He wrote of childhood memories, of being forbidden from entering the pantry, of hearing his mother speaking to the jars late at night, of her constant reminders that she was protecting everyone through her containment work. "When I was 8, one journal entry read, I snuck into the pantry while she was gardening. I opened one of the jars, Tommy Brinkman, a kid from my class. That night, Tommy broke his arm falling from the jungle gym. Mother knew somehow. She told me I had released something, and now she had to collect more to seal it back." Psychiatric evaluation of Michael revealed a complex delusional disorder, likely inherited from or influenced by his mother's own undiagnosed condition. He believed Alina's jars contained not just physical mementos, but metaphysical elements, spirits, fates, fortunes of the children they came from. He had become convinced that his mother was weakening with age, that soon she wouldn't be able to keep them contained, and so he had taken what he saw as preventative action. As for Alina, doctors diagnosed her with an advanced dementia that had likely been developing for years, potentially explaining the escalation of her collecting behavior. In her more lucid moments, she spoke of her jars as protection and herself as a guardian. She expressed no anger toward her son, only concern that her work remained unfinished. She believed she was trapping negative energy, Dr. Harmon explained, that by containing these small parts of children, she was preventing harm from coming to them. It was a psychological disorder that manifested as a delusion of protective power. And tragically, that same delusion was passed to her son in a distorted form. Alina Pritchard now resides in a specialized care facility for patients with dementia. Michael awaits trial, though his attorneys have entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. The jars remain in evidence storage. Sometimes, late at night, officers claim they can hear faint sounds coming from the evidence room, like distant children's voices or the tinkling of glass against glass, as if hundreds of jars were gently shifting of their own accord. But of course that's impossible. The pantry is locked now, secured just to be safe. Crime 7, it was a child's toy, dusty and forgotten in the attic. But when officers examined it closely, they noticed disturbing accuracy, the wallpaper, the staircase, even a red stain on the miniature carpet. It matched a real crime scene perfectly, one the family swore they'd never heard of. The Mercer family had lived in the quiet suburb of Oakwood Heights, Connecticut, for 3 generations. Their Victorian home on Elmwood Drive stood as a testament to old money and quiet respectability. Alina Mercer, now 78, had inherited the house from her parents and raised her own children within its walls. Her granddaughter, Lily, was the one who found the dollhouse while helping Alina clean out the attic for an estate sale. "Grandma, I never knew you had this," Lily had said, pulling away the sheet that had covered it for what appeared to be decades. The dollhouse was an exact replica of their home, 3 stories, with a wraparound porch and dormer windows. Alina stared at it, her face draining of color. "I've never seen that before in my life," she whispered. The dollhouse was crafted with remarkable attention to detail. Each room contained miniature furniture that matched what had once been in the real house, according to old family photographs. The wallpaper patterns, faded lilacs in the master bedroom, green stripes in the study, were perfect miniature versions of wallpaper that had been replaced in the 1990s. But it was the living room that caught Lily's attention. A small red stain, about the size of a dime, darkened the corner of the miniature carpet. "Looks like someone spilled something," Lily remarked casually. Alina didn't respond. She simply closed the attic door and suggested they continue another day. She claimed a headache had come on suddenly. 3 days later, Alina Mercer was found dead in her bed. Natural causes, the medical examiner would eventually rule, a stroke in her sleep. But when police came to the house to fill out routine paperwork, Lily mentioned the dollhouse, mostly as idle conversation to distract herself from grief. Detective Sarah Harding wasn't typically assigned to natural death cases. She had been filling in for a colleague with the flu. As Lily described the dollhouse and Alina's strange reaction, Harding felt that familiar prickle at the back of her neck, the sensation she'd learned to trust over 15 years on the force. "Mind if I take a look at it?" she asked. The attic was cold despite the September heat outside. The dollhouse sat where they had left it, partially uncovered. Detective Harding circled it slowly, taking pictures with her phone. She paused at the living room window, using the flashlight on her phone to illuminate the interior. "This stain you mentioned," she said. "Can you show me?" Lily pointed to the corner of the miniature Persian rug. Harding stared at it for a long moment before asking, "Do you know if there was ever a similar stain in the actual living room?" "Not that I know of," Lily said. "The real carpet was replaced when I was maybe 10, but I don't remember any stains." What Detective Harding didn't tell Lily was that the dollhouse's layout, furnishings, and particularly that small red stain matched crime scene photos from an unsolved murder that had occurred in 1976, before Alina had even purchased the home. The Whitaker case, as it was known in department records, involved the death of a local schoolteacher, Marion Whitaker, who was found in the living room of what would later become the Mercer home. The case had gone cold after a year of investigation. The wallpaper, the furniture placement, even the position of the stain, all matched photos from the original investigation file. A file that had been stored in the evidence room of the Oakwood Heights Police Department for nearly 50 years. Detective Harding requested permission to take the dollhouse into evidence. Lily, confused but cooperative, agreed. Within hours, the dollhouse was being photographed and examined in the department's forensics lab. "The craftsmanship suggests it was made by hand, not mass-produced," explained the department's aging evidence technician who had worked at the department since the 1980s. "And based on the materials and aging patterns, I'd say it was made close to the time of the Whitaker murder." What troubled investigators most was how the dollhouse maker could have known such precise details about the crime scene. The position of furniture and the exact location of bloodstains had never been released to the public. Only the investigating officers, the crime scene unit, and the killer would have known these details. Detectives pulled the original Whitaker case files. Marion Whitaker had been found by a neighbor who came to borrow sugar. She had been struck from behind with a heavy object later determined to be a brass bookend missing from the scene. The killer had never been identified, though suspicion had fallen on her ex-husband, who had a solid alibi at a business conference in Chicago. Detective Harding began interviewing neighbors who had lived in the area since the 1970s. Most remembered the murder vaguely, a terrible thing that happened to that poor schoolteacher. None had any connection to Alina Mercer or could explain how the dollhouse had found its way into her attic. Returning to the evidence from Alina's room, Harding found a journal in the nightstand. Most entries were mundane reflections on gardening and visits with grandchildren, but one entry from 15 years earlier caught her attention. "I dreamed about the house again last night, the way it was before. I know it's impossible, but I can see every detail so clearly, the wallpaper, the furniture, even the stain that won't come out no matter how hard I scrub in my dreams. Perhaps the house remembers what happened here, even if I don't." Further investigation revealed that Alina had been treated for sleepwalking and night terrors shortly after moving into the house in the early 1980s. Her late husband had told friends that she would sometimes wake up screaming about blood on the carpet and someone watching from the corner. The case took an even stranger turn when forensic testing found traces of decades-old blood embedded in the miniature carpet, human blood that, when tested against samples preserved from the original case, matched Marion Whitaker's rare blood type. But the most disturbing discovery came when investigators found tiny fingerprints on the miniature furniture. Using advanced fingerprint reconstruction technology, they determined that several prints belonged to Alina Mercer, not as an adult, but as a child. Yet according to all records, Alina had never lived in or visited Oakwood Heights, until she married and moved into the house with her husband in 1980, 4 years after the murder. When detectives searched birth and school records more thoroughly, they found something Aliner's family didn't know. Before being adopted by the Mercer family of Boston at age 7, Aliner had been born Aliner Whitaker, Marion Whitaker's daughter, who had been staying with relatives the night of her mother's murder. The child had been adopted through a closed adoption and given a new identity to protect her from the trauma. The case files showed that young Aliner had been the one to discover her mother's body when she returned home unexpectedly early from her aunt's house, a detail omitted from news reports to protect the child. Detective Harding theorized that Aliner had created the dollhouse during art therapy sessions documented in her childhood medical records following the trauma. The therapist's notes mentioned a detailed replica the child had constructed, but which was supposedly destroyed when the therapy office closed. Somehow the dollhouse had found its way back to Aliner decades later, perhaps discovered in storage and sent to her without explanation, triggering buried memories her conscious mind couldn't process. The adoption records had been sealed, and Aliner herself likely had no conscious memory of her early childhood or the trauma she had witnessed. The dollhouse now sits in the evidence storage room of the Oakwood Heights Police Department. The Whitaker case remains officially unsolved. Aliner Mercer lived for decades in the same house where her biological mother was murdered, never consciously knowing the connection. Her granddaughter Lily has since sold the house, uncomfortable with its history. Detective Harding sometimes visits the evidence room to look at the dollhouse. She wonders if Aliner ever remembered the truth in those moments between sleeping and waking, if the house itself somehow held memories her mind had locked away. The red stain on the miniature carpet has faded with time, but remains visible under the right light, a child's perfect recreation of the last moment she saw her mother alive. Some wounds never fully heal. They just get packed away in boxes in our minds like toys in an attic, waiting to be rediscovered. Crime 8, the keys were chipped and some strings were broken, but the piano in the basement would let out low, deliberate notes whenever someone walked past. Not random, always the same sequence. Eventually, someone wrote it down and realized it spelled something, names of 3 women buried nearby. Mason Creek was the kind of town where everyone nodded hello, even to strangers. Population 3,842, according to the faded sign at the town limits. The kind of place where the local diner served the same special every Thursday for 40 years, and the high school football coach was treated with the reverence usually reserved for senators. It was here, in this unremarkable dot on the map of northern Pennsylvania, that Aliner Simmons had lived all 76 years of her life. Aliner's Victorian home on Mulberry Street had been in her family for generations. 3 stories of weathered brick and ornate woodwork that had witnessed the passing of decades with silent dignity. The neighbors described her as particular but pleasant, a retired music teacher who still gave piano lessons to a few select students in her parlor on Saturday afternoons. Her daily routine rarely varied. Coffee at 6:15 a.m., followed by crossword puzzles from the Mason Creek Chronicle. Gardening when weather permitted, lunch precisely at noon. Afternoons spent reading or playing her beloved Steinway, the sounds of Chopin or Debussy drifting through the neighborhood like ghosts of another era. Dinner at 5:30, then television until 9:45 when she would retire upstairs. This pattern had continued uninterrupted until October 17, 2023, when Mrs. Henderson from next door noticed Aliner's porch light had remained on throughout the day. By evening, the newspaper still sat folded on the doorstep. I called her twice, Mrs. Henderson later told Detective James Harmon. Eleanor never misses a call, never. When officers entered the house that evening, everything appeared intact. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. Eleanor's reading glasses sat folded on an open book. Her teacup, half full, had long gone cold beside her favorite armchair. The house was silent except for the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the foyer. Eleanor Simmons had simply vanished. The investigation proceeded as these things do in small towns unaccustomed to mystery. Interviews with neighbors revealed nothing unusual. Eleanor had no known enemies, no financial troubles, no concerning medical conditions beyond the expected ailments of advancing age. Her only living relative, a nephew in Seattle, hadn't spoken to her in months. "We're treating this as a missing persons case," Police Chief Daniels told reporters from the regional news stations that descended on Mason Creek like vultures. "We ask anyone with information to come forward." Days passed, then weeks. Autumn faded into a bitter winter. The case grew cold alongside the weather, with Eleanor's home sitting empty, curtains drawn like closed eyes. It was 3 months later when Thomas Bell purchased the house at auction. A 42-year-old software developer looking for quiet after a divorce, Thomas saw promise in the old Victorian despite its association with the town's unsolved mystery. The price was right, he explained to his sister on the phone while unpacking boxes in the kitchen. Besides, old ladies don't just evaporate. She probably went to live with family somewhere and forgot to tell anyone. The first night in the house was uneventful. The second night, Thomas awoke at 3:17 a.m. to what he thought was music. Just 3 notes played slowly. DAB so faint he convinced himself it was a dream before falling back asleep. The following evening, while organizing books in the study, he heard it again. This time 5 notes. DABG clear, deliberate keystrokes from somewhere below. "Hello," Thomas called out, descending the basement stairs with a flashlight. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floors, exposed beams, and walls lined with shelves of preserved fruits and vegetables that Eleanor had canned over the years. In the far corner, covered with a sheet, sat an upright piano. Not the grand Steinway from the parlor, but an older, smaller instrument with yellowed keys. Thomas approached it cautiously, pulling away the dusty sheet. The piano appeared ancient, its wood cracked in places, several keys visibly damaged. A small brass plaque on the front read, "Instruction Piano 1962. "Must be catching drafts," Thomas muttered to himself, replacing the sheet and returning upstairs. But the notes continued, always at odd hours, always the same progression, though sometimes longer than before. DABGAD. After 2 weeks, Thomas began writing them down, converting the musical notes to their corresponding letters. What emerged disturbed him enough to finally contact Detective Harmon. "DABGAD," Thomas explained, showing his notebook. "If you translate the notes to letters, it spells out Dave Gade, and there are other sequences too. Ann Roth and Melinda Cox. I looked these names up online. These were women who went missing from counties nearby. Ann Roth disappeared in 1964, Melinda Cox in 1973, and Dave, I think that's short for Deborah, Gade vanished in 1985. Harmon was skeptical but thorough. He researched the names and found Thomas was correct. 3 unsolved disappearances spanning 3 decades. "What's the connection to Eleanor?" Harmon asked. The answer came from Eleanor's old teaching records. Before retiring, Alina Simmons had taught music at Mason Creek High School from 1962 to 1996. During those years, she'd also given private lessons. Among her students, Ann Roth, Melinda Cox, and Deborah Gade. With this information, investigators returned to Alina's house with cadaver dogs. The animals showed particular interest in a section of the basement that appeared to have newer concrete than the rest. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed what the piano had been trying to tell them. There were human remains buried beneath the floor. The excavation took 3 days. Buried 6 feet deep in the earth beneath Alina's basement were the remains of 4 women. 3 were identified as Ann Roth, Melinda Cox, and Deborah Gade. The 4th set of remains, positioned directly beneath the piano itself, belonged to Alina Simmons. Forensic analysis revealed that Alina had been buried most recently, perhaps only days before her reported disappearance. The other women had been dead for decades, their causes of death consistent with strangulation. Each body had been carefully positioned, hands crossed over chest, with a single piano wire wrapped around their necks. As investigators pieced together this macabre discovery, another connection emerged. Each of the younger victims had been particularly talented pianists, competition winners, special students. Alina's pride and joy, according to old newspaper clippings found in albums throughout the house. In Alina's bedroom closet, hidden inside a hollowed-out book of sheet music, detectives found a journal. Its pages contained meticulous notes about each student's progress, personality, and potential. The entries started professionally but gradually became possessive, even obsessive. The final entries for each girl expressed disappointment, betrayal. Anne had decided to pursue athletics instead of music. Melinda was moving away for college. Deborah had chosen a different piano teacher. The last entry in the journal, dated October 16, 2023, the day before Alina was reported missing, contained only one sentence. They were my legacy, and they abandoned it. The investigation concluded that Alina had murdered her former students years ago, preserving her dark secret for decades. But what happened to Alina herself remains officially unsolved. The predominant theory suggests she took her own life, choosing to be buried with her special students rather than face discovery or imprisonment. As for the piano that revealed the truth, Thomas Bell donated it to the Mason Creek Historical Society, where it sits silently behind glass. Occasionally, visitors report hearing faint notes when no one is near, always the same sequence, always spelling out names of those buried together beneath a house where music once filled the air with both beauty and dread. In Mason Creek today, piano lessons are still offered at the community center, but parents now tend to stay for the duration of the class and no one practices alone. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the wind blows just right, residents swear they can hear distant melodies drifting through town, notes that sound like names played by invisible fingers on chipped ivory keys. Crime 9, the backyard was overgrown, the wooden fence rotted in places. But one post had been repaired recently, nails still shiny. Between the boards, tangled in splinters, was a thick clump of long, dark hair, fresh. Underneath the fence, police found scratches in the dirt and something metal glinting, a necklace engraved with a name no one recognized. In the small town of Millbrook, Maine, where everyone knew their neighbors by first name, Officer Daniel Holcomb had never seen anything quite like this. He'd responded to the call on September 16, 2023, from an elderly woman named Ruth Simmons who'd been gardening when she noticed something strange about her neighbor's fence. It just didn't seem right, she'd told the dispatcher, her voice trembling, and there's been a strange smell for days. The house belonged to Edward Walsh, a 47-year-old accountant who moved to Millbrook 4 years ago. Quiet, polite, kept to himself. The kind of neighbor who would wave from his driveway but rarely stopped to chat. He drove a sensible blue sedan, left for work each morning at precisely 7:15 and returned most evenings by 6:30. Routines matter in small towns. They provide a rhythm, a sense of normalcy. And Ed Walsh's routines were as predictable as the seasons. Until they weren't. No one had seen Ed for 11 days. His blue sedan sat in the driveway, collecting a thin layer of September pollen. His mail overflowed from the box by his front door. The newspaper delivery person had stopped leaving papers after the stack on the porch grew too high. These details might have gone unnoticed in a busy city, but in Millbrook they created ripples of concern that eventually reached Ruth Simmons' garden, where she discovered that peculiar fence repair and the disturbing clump of hair. Officer Holcomb called for backup before entering the Walsh residence. The front door was unlocked, unusual for a man known to double-check his locks before leaving for work. The house was immaculate, almost eerily so. No dirty dishes in the sink, no clothes draped over furniture. Everything in its place, as though the home were waiting for a real estate showing rather than being actively lived in. "Mr. Walsh," Holcomb called out, his voice echoing against the bare walls. No response. In the kitchen, a coffee mug sat on the counter, half full, a thin layer of mold floating on the surface. The refrigerator contained fresh groceries, milk that wouldn't expire for another week, vegetables still crisp in their produce bags. On the counter beside the refrigerator was a receipt from Taylor's Market dated September 5th, the last day anyone recalled seeing Edward Walsh. The bedroom told a different story. The perfectly made bed contradicted the open drawers, their contents disturbed as though someone had rummaged through them hastily. A photo frame lay face down on the nightstand, the only object out of place in an otherwise methodical home. When Officer Holcomb turned it over, he found a picture of Edward Walsh standing beside a dark-haired woman. Both were smiling. Their arms were around each other's waists. The glass of the frame was cracked, a small web of fractures spreading across the woman's face. "Who's this?" Officer Holcomb asked when the forensics team arrived. No one knew. In 4 years of living in Millbrook, Edward Walsh had never mentioned a significant other, had never been seen with a woman who matched this description. Some neighbors had assumed he was divorced, others that he was simply married to his work. But here was evidence of someone important enough to keep framed beside his bed. The necklace found under the fence was brought into the house, placed carefully in an evidence bag. The engraving read Sophia. The woman in the photograph wore no visible jewelry. By the end of the day, the Walsh residence had been declared a potential crime scene. Yellow tape cordoned off the property. Neighbors gathered in small clusters on the sidewalk, whispering theories to one another. Everyone had known Edward Walsh, yet no one had known him, not really. Now they wondered what secrets might be buried beneath his perfectly ordinary existence. Detective Meredith Sloan arrived from the county seat the following morning. At 43, Sloan had the patience of someone who had learned that most cases unravel slowly, thread by thread. She began by examining the fence where the hair had been found. "This repair job was done by someone who doesn't know what they're doing," she observed, pointing to the uneven spacing of the nails, the splintered wood. "Not professional work." The hair was sent to the state lab for DNA analysis, along with samples taken from Edward Walsh's hairbrush. The results would take weeks to process. Meanwhile, Detective Sloan focused on the most pressing question: who was Sophia? A search of state records revealed no marriage license for Edward Walsh in Maine. His emergency contact at work was listed as his sister, Caroline Walsh Jenkins, living in Indianapolis. When contacted, Caroline expressed shock at her brother's disappearance. "I just spoke to him 3 weeks ago," she said, her voice cracking over the phone. "He seemed, I don't know, distracted maybe, but not in danger." "Did he ever mention someone named Sophia?" Detective Sloan asked. A long pause followed. "No," Caroline finally said, "never." The search of Edward's home computer yielded little. His browser history had been meticulously cleared. His email contained mostly work correspondence and promotional newsletters. His phone was missing, not in the house, not in his car. The cellular provider confirmed that the last activity on his account was a text message sent on September 5th at 9:43 p.m. The recipient was listed simply as S in his contacts. The message read, "Doors unlocked, come whenever you're ready." Detective Sloan expanded the search to include Edward Walsh's life before Millbrook. He had moved from Columbus, Ohio, where he had worked for a different accounting firm for 12 years. Former colleagues described him as competent, reserved, possibly too cautious for his own good. The kind of guy who would triple-check a tax form, one said. None recalled him mentioning anyone named Sophia. Then came the break in the case. A woman in Frederick, Maryland, reported that her sister, Sophia Reyes, had been missing since early September. Sophia, 38, had told her family she was going to visit a friend in Maine. She had texted on September 5th to say she had arrived safely. Then nothing. A photograph of Sophia Reyes matched the woman in Edward's bedside frame. When confronted with this information, Caroline Walsh Jenkins finally revealed what she knew. They were together for 3 years in Columbus, she admitted. It ended badly. Ed never talked about it, but I know she stalked him afterward, called him constantly, showed up at his workplace. That's why he moved to Maine, to get away from her. I had no idea she had found him again. The DNA results confirmed that the hair in the fence belonged to Sophia Reyes. Soil samples from Edward Walsh's backyard revealed traces of blood beneath a recently turned section of earth. Ground-penetrating radar indicated a mass approximately 5 feet below the surface. When the excavation began, residents of Millbrook gathered once more, this time maintaining a respectful distance. The atmosphere was solemn, the earlier curiosity replaced by dread. Even those who had barely known Edward Walsh felt a collective grief, not just for whatever tragedy had occurred in their midst, but for the realization that they had never really seen beneath the surface of their neighbor's life. What they found, however, was not what anyone expected. The body buried in Edward Walsh's backyard was not Sophia Reyes. It was Edward himself, his face unrecognizable from decomposition, but his clothing and wedding ring confirming his identity. He had been struck from behind with a blunt object, likely the missing fireplace poker from his living room. The medical examiner estimated he had been dead since the evening of September 5th or early morning of September 6th. Sophia Reyes' whereabouts remained unknown. Her car was discovered 3 days later at a long-term parking lot near Portland International Airport. Security footage showed her entering the terminal on September 6th, wearing large sunglasses and carrying a single suitcase. She purchased a ticket to Vancouver, Canada, using a credit card in Edward Walsh's name. The case grew more complex as investigators pieced together the relationship between Edward and Sophia. They had indeed dated in Columbus, but the narrative of Sophia as a stalker appeared to be false, a story Edward had created, perhaps to hide deeper troubles. Records indicated that before leaving Ohio, Edward had withdrawn nearly $200,000 from joint investment accounts he shared with Sophia. She had filed police reports at the time, but without evidence of criminal intent, the case had been deemed a civil matter. Had Sophia tracked Edward down for revenge, for the money he had taken? Had she killed him in a confrontation gone wrong? Or was there another explanation entirely? The fence repair, amateur and hasty, seemed to be her work, perhaps an attempt to secure the property after burying Edward. But why leave behind a necklace with her own name? Was it dropped accidentally or left as some kind of message? International authorities were alerted to watch for Sophia Reyes, but she had vanished into the vastness of Canada, possibly beyond. Back in Millbrook, Edward Walsh's house stood empty, a for sale sign eventually appearing in the front yard. The new owners replaced the fence entirely, unaware of its significance. Officer Daniel Holcomb often drove past the Walsh house during his patrols. Sometimes he would slow down, studying the new fence, the freshly landscaped yard, the warm lights glowing from within. The case remained officially open, but growing colder by the day. Some nights when the streets of Millbrook were quiet and his mind would wander, Holcomb found himself thinking about Edward and Sophia, two people who had once loved each other enough to be photographed smiling, arms entwined. He wondered what happened in the years between that photograph and the night of September 5th. What words were exchanged in Edward Walsh's immaculate living room? What truths finally surfaced after years of silence? And sometimes in the moments before dawn, when the boundary between intuition and imagination grows thin, Officer Holcomb could almost convince himself that someday, somewhere, another small-town police officer would respond to a call about something not quite right. A fence newly repaired, perhaps, or a strange smell lingering too long, and the final chapter of Edward and Sophia's story would begin to unfold. Story 10. As the night settled in, the baby monitor emitted a faint flicker, a glitch that caught the mother's attention. Initially dismissing it as mere interference, she soon heard the crackling of the audio, followed by a soft, eerie whisper, "SHHH, go back to sleep." A chill ran down her spine, freezing her in place. With a racing heart, she hurried to her son's room, only to find the crib empty, the window sealed shut, and the door securely locked. The only anomaly was a stuffed rabbit lying on the floor, its unblinking black eyes seeming to stare right through her. Rebecca's scream pierced the silence, raw and unrelenting, echoing through the walls until the neighbors alerted emergency services. When the authorities arrived, they discovered her cradling the stuffed rabbit, swaying back and forth on the nursery floor. Samuel, her 4-month-old baby, had vanished without a trace. The investigation commenced, yielding little in the way of leads. No signs of forced entry, no alarms triggered by the security system. The baby monitor footage showed nothing out of the ordinary until that mysterious voice disrupted the night's tranquility. How could someone infiltrate a locked home, snatch a child, and leave no trace except for a displaced toy? Suspicion soon fell upon Rebecca, especially considering her history of seeking help for postpartum depression and the strained dynamics within her marriage to Daniel, who was away on business during the incident. A breakthrough emerged when microscopic fibers foreign to the household were discovered on the nursery windowsill, a type of climbing rope not belonging to the family. The focus shifted as security footage from the vicinity unveiled a shadowy figure moving stealthily under the cover of darkness. A boot print in the garden's soil matched that of a skilled climber or military personnel. Daniel, upon his return, raised eyebrows with his newfound rock climbing hobby, evident through unusual calluses on his hands and a significant life insurance policy taken out on Samuel. Further scrutiny revealed a hidden life Daniel had maintained, unbeknownst to Rebecca, a second family in another town, along with suspicious phone calls and financial transactions. The tangled web extended to the baby monitor, which had been hacked to transmit the unsettling voice remotely. Tracking the digital breach led investigators to a basement where Samuel was found in the care of a woman named Elaine, Daniel's first wife, who had orchestrated the abduction, driven by years of unresolved grief and jealousy. The courtroom fell silent as damning evidence unfolded during the trial. Audio specialists isolated Daniel's cough in the enhanced baby monitor recording, placing him at the scene of the crime he vehemently denied involvement in. The jury swiftly returned with a verdict, condemning Daniel and Elaine for their orchestrated kidnapping scheme. Rebecca and Samuel sought solace in a new beginning, far from the shadows of the past. The case left a lasting impact on how modern abductions are approached, prompting a nationwide review of baby monitor security and heightened vigilance among parents. Samuel grew up shielded from the memories of that fateful night, while Rebecca held onto the stuffed rabbit, a silent witness to the truth concealed beneath the whispered voice that had pierced the darkness. The baby monitor, with its chilling revelation, stood as a testament to the unforeseen depths of deception and betrayal that lurked in the shadows. Story 11. In the quiet stillness of their new home, Michael and Sarah Klein embarked on a journey that would unravel the secrets woven into the very fabric of the Victorian-era house. The peeling wallpaper, a mere facade hiding the layers of history buried within its walls, beckoned them to uncover its mysteries. As they delicately stripped away the worn paper, a story unfolded before their eyes. Inked in desperation, a name repeated endlessly: Alina Winters. Each stroke of the pen, each iteration of the name, whispered a tale of longing and loss, etched into the very essence of the house. Alina Winters, a name unfamiliar yet haunting, led the couple down a path of intrigue and uncertainty. The name did not belong to the previous residents, nor did it find a place in the annals of official records. It existed in solitude, a spectral presence yearning to be acknowledged. Their curiosity ignited, Michael and Sarah delved into the depths of the internet, seeking solace in the digital realm. A single search yielded a chilling revelation, a missing persons case from a bygone era, the face of a woman bearing an uncanny resemblance to the one who had bid them farewell from the threshold of their new abode. The walls whispered secrets of the past, urging the couple to unravel the enigma that lay dormant within their midst. The decision to renovate had been serendipitous, a catalyst for the dormant spirits of the house to awaken from their slumber. In the dim glow of the master bedroom, a water stain marked the beginning of their journey. The yellowed wallpaper, a harbinger of the layers awaiting discovery, crumbled at their touch, revealing a tableau of bygone eras hidden beneath. Paisley patterns from the 1970s, striped motifs from a time long past, and finally, the emergence of writing Alina Winters, a name etched into the very soul of the house. The walls bore witness to a tale of longing and despair, a narrative woven into the very fibers of the building. Sarah's fingers traced the intricate script, her voice barely a whisper in the stillness of the night. Who was Alina Winters? A question left unanswered, a mystery shrouded in the mists of time, waiting to be unraveled. The investigation became their obsession, a quest for truth that transcended the boundaries of time. Sarah's tireless pursuit led them to the doorstep of the past, where the echoes of Alina Winters lingered in the shadows of forgotten memories. The retired detective's words hung heavy in the air, a revelation that shattered their perceptions of reality. Alina and Margaret, intertwined in a dance of deception and tragedy, their fates sealed within the confines of the house they once called home. Forensic teams descended upon the residence, their meticulous work unearthing the layers of deception that had long been concealed. The truth, a bitter pill to swallow, lay buried beneath the floorboards, hidden in plain sight. Eleanor Winters, a specter of the past, found her voice in the whispers of the wind, guiding the investigators to her final resting place. The walls, once silent witnesses to a crime long forgotten, bore the weight of guilt and remorse, etched in the ink of a fractured mind. As the sun set on the horizon, casting long shadows across the garden, the truth emerged from the depths of the earth. Eleanor's remains, a silent testament to a life cut short, brought closure to a chapter long left unresolved. Rebecca Eldridge, the enigmatic figure at the heart of the mystery, stood at the precipice of truth and falsehood. Her fractured mind, a labyrinth of identities and illusions, crumbled beneath the weight of her own deception. The house, once a beacon of charm and allure, now stood as a monument to tragedy and loss. Michael and Sarah, custodians of a dark legacy, bore witness to a tale that transcended the boundaries of time, a story of love, betrayal, and the ghosts that lingered within the walls. As the night descended, wrapping the house in a cloak of shadows, the whispers of the past faded into the ether, leaving behind a sense of peace and closure. The house, once haunted by the echoes of a bygone era, now stood silent and still, a sentinel guarding the secrets buried within its walls. Story 12. The wooden plank shifted ever so slightly beneath her weight, catching her attention with a soft creak. Intrigued, she knelt down and traced the edges of the loose board, sensing a hidden space beneath the seemingly solid floor. With gentle determination, she lifted the boards, revealing a dark and narrow cavity beneath her new home. At first, only dust and cobwebs greeted her eyes in the dim light, but as her vision adjusted to the darkness, she discerned the faint outlines of objects within the hidden chamber. A mattress, a chair, and in the shadows, a worn notebook filled with endless repetitions of a single name her own. Detective Morgan Reed stood silently behind Sarah Coleman, observing the mixture of shock and fear in her gaze as she peered into the abyss below. It was more than just the discovery of a secret room. It was a violation of security, an intrusion of something sinister into what should have been a fresh beginning. "Please refrain from touching anything," Detective Reed's voice was steady, a calming presence amidst the unsettling revelation. Clicking on her flashlight, she illuminated the concealed space, unveiling walls adorned with surveillance photographs, images of Sarah in her daily life, captured without her knowledge. A shrine of obsession lay hidden beneath the floorboards, a testament to the unseen watcher who had meticulously documented Sarah's every move. The cottage had been purchased from the estate of a solitary man named Walter Green, who had lived and died in solitude, leaving behind a haunting legacy beneath the floor. As the crime scene investigators arrived, their footsteps echoing on the wooden floors, they meticulously documented the eerie chamber, extracting the mattress, chair, and notebook for further analysis. The fingerprints found throughout the space belonged solely to Walter Green, raising chilling questions about his intentions. The timeline that emerged from utility records and dated photographs painted a disturbing picture. Walter had been fixated on Sarah for years, blending seamlessly into her surroundings, unnoticed and unknown. His obsession had escalated from mere observation to something more sinister, hinted at by the hidden room. During a briefing with the department psychologist, it became clear that Walter's fixation had crossed into dangerous territory, a transition from fantasy to a chilling reality. Detective Reed's investigation took a new direction when she unearthed a clue from Walter's former coworker, a man who spoke of Walter's unsettling remarks about Sarah. A key found in Walter's workplace locker led them to a storage unit that held a replica of Sarah's old life furniture, belongings, and a calendar marking a fateful date. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, revealing Walter's delusional belief in a shared destiny with Sarah, a plan that never came to fruition. Walter's troubled past, marked by a history of obsession and delusion, shed light on his descent into darkness once more. Sarah, shaken to her core by the revelations, chose to sell the house and start anew, haunted by the thought of what might have been had she not uncovered the hidden room. The case was closed officially, labeled as stalking with intent to abduct, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. Sarah relocated, guarded and vigilant, while Detective Reed kept a watchful eye from afar, a silent guardian against unseen threats. The cottage passed into new hands, oblivious to the secrets hidden beneath its floorboards. The hidden room was sealed, the past buried once more. Life carried on, but for those who knew the truth, the story of the room beneath the floor lingered as a cautionary tale of shadows that dwell unseen, of monsters that fade away, and of the fragile line between safety and peril. Story 13: The Enigmatic Doll. They stumbled upon it in the attic, nestled beneath a worn blanket, a porcelain doll, fragile and aged, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold secrets untold. Sarah and Michael, a young couple, shared a chuckle at the unexpected find, dismissing it as just another relic of the past. Little did they know, that night would mark the beginning of a mysterious journey. As they retired to bed, a peculiar sensation lingered in the air, a weightiness that seemed to defy explanation. The silence of the house stretched, almost palpable, enveloping them in an eerie embrace. And when morning dawned, the doll was nowhere to be found in the attic. It had migrated to the foot of their bed, a silent sentinel in the dim light of dawn. Sarah and Michael had been captivated by the allure of the Victorian house they had acquired at auction, its intricate woodwork whispering of bygone days and hidden stories. Unbeknownst to them, they were stepping into a narrative woven long before their time, entwined with the enigma of the porcelain doll. Detective Rachel Winters, a seasoned investigator, was summoned on a crisp autumn morning to unravel the chilling tableau that awaited her in the master bedroom. The female victim, her form contorted in a macabre pose, bore an expression of terror etched into her features, frozen for eternity. Nearby, the male victim lay in the hallway, a silent witness to his futile attempt to flee the inexplicable horror that had befallen them. The scene was pristine, devoid of any visible disturbance, a haunting perfection that spoke of a meticulous hand behind the tragedy. Detective Winters, her voice a mere whisper in the solemn space, noted the deliberate arrangement of the victims, akin to dolls plucked from their display. The investigation unfurled like a tapestry of shadows and whispers, each thread leading deeper into a labyrinth of unanswered questions. Neighbors shared fragments of unsettling recollections, a fleeting shadow at an upstairs window, the ghostly echoes of childish laughter in the dead of night, adding layers of disquiet to an already haunting narrative. Forensic scrutiny unveiled a spectral trail of vintage fibers, remnants of a bygone era clinging to the crime scene with spectral fingers. The absence of intruders' imprints, the dearth of foreign DNA, hinted at a presence that defied the constraints of the tangible world. The lead forensic analyst mused aloud, pondering the phantom hand that had orchestrated this grim spectacle. Delving into the annals of the house's history, Detective Winters unearthed a pattern woven through time, a tapestry of tragedy and enigma that spanned generations. 3 prior owners had met their demise under shroud-like circumstances, their fates intertwined with the eerie legacy of the house. A faded newspaper clipping whispered of a doll maker who had once called the house his abode, his craft shrouded in whispers of arcane rituals and haunted creations. His final masterpiece, a doll fashioned in the likeness of his departed daughter, bore a semblance to the porcelain specter that haunted the present investigation. In a hidden alcove beneath the attic's floorboards, sepia-toned photographs whispered of bygone days, capturing the doll maker and his spectral creations in frozen moments of time. One doll, mirroring the doll found by Sarah and Michael, seemed to defy the stillness of its surroundings, shifting subtly between frames as if caught in a spectral dance. Infrared scans unveiled a chilling revelation, a ghostly trail of tiny handprints, invisible to the naked eye, etched along the path from attic to tragedy-stricken bedroom. A residue of porcelain dust mingled with unclassified organic matter bore silent testament to a presence that eluded the confines of mortal comprehension. A chance encounter with a distant kin of the doll maker unveiled whispers of forbidden knowledge, of arcane practices that sought to breathe life into inanimate forms. The delicate boundary between the living and the spectral blurred as the truth veiled in shadows began to unfurl its tendrils. The investigation, ensnared in a web of the uncanny, reached an impasse as conventional explanations withered in the face of spectral whispers and ghostly trails. Detective Winters, her resolve unshaken, clasped the porcelain doll in the grip of evidence, its silent gaze a testament to mysteries unsolved. Yet the night cast its veil of secrets once more, as the doll vanished from its confines, leaving behind a void that echoed with whispers of forgotten tales. The detective herself, adrift in a sea of forgotten memories, found herself unscathed yet bewildered, her mind a haze of unanswered questions. The house, a silent witness to the enigma that dwelled within its walls, changed hands once more, its troubled legacy a whispered secret among those who knew its haunted past. The attic, a sanctum of secrets and shadows, lay barren save for a forsaken blanket, a silent tribute to mysteries long forgotten. The porcelain doll, a specter of the past, vanished into the mists of memory, its eerie laughter a fading echo in the stillness of the night. And as the house embraced a new dawn, neighbors whispered of a fleeting shadow that danced behind the attic window, and the soft laughter of a child that lingered in the hallowed halls of time. Story 14. The motel stood there, a relic of the past, its faded facade whispering tales of transient souls. It was a place where whispers lingered in the shadows, where secrets danced in the air like dust motes caught in a ray of light. The night was draped in a cloak of mystery as she approached the front desk, the clerk's gaze heavy with unspoken words. He slid the key across the counter, his voice a mere murmur, "Just don't take the last door on the left." Her curiosity stirred, a gentle pull tugging at her senses. That night the hallway stretched before her like a tunnel of forgotten dreams. Each door stood silent, a sentinel guarding its own mysteries. But the last door on the left beckoned to her, a siren's call in the hushed stillness of the night. As she reached out to touch the handle, a chill crept up her spine. The door, nondescript like the others, held its secrets close. Pressing her ear against the cold wood, she heard it a soft, rhythmic breath, a whisper from the other side, a presence waiting in the shadows. Detective Morgan Reed stepped into the room, the crime scene unfolding before her like a macabre painting. The scent of copper lingered in the air, a metallic tang that spoke of violence unsheathed. Blood had seeped into the fabric of the room, staining it with a darkness that seemed to swallow all light. Amidst the chaos, a figure lay still on the floor, a silent witness to the horrors of the night. Her porcelain skin was a stark contrast to the crimson pool around her, her eyes fixed on eternity, a silent scream frozen on her lips. Reed knelt beside the fallen angel, her fingers tracing the outline of tragedy. The forensics team moved around her, their movements methodical, detached. The technician's voice cut through the silence, a stark reminder of the reality they faced. "This is the third one," he stated, his tone devoid of emotion. "The same pattern, the same darkness." Reed's gaze lingered on the victim's elegant attire, a stark contrast to the bleak surroundings. There was a story here, a narrative woven in silk and blood, a tale of beauty marred by brutality. Back at the station, the pieces of the puzzle began to take shape. 3 women, 3 lives extinguished in the shadows of anonymity. The whispers of a predator prowling in the night grew louder, a specter haunting the edges of their reality. As the investigation delved deeper, Reed unearthed fragments of a life lost in the shadows. Elaine Werner, a woman of grace and poise, her secrets buried beneath a facade of normalcy. But behind closed doors, a darkness lurked, a presence that hungered for more than flesh and blood. The trail led to Charles Emerson, a man of stature and influence, his mask slipping under Reed's piercing gaze. The web of deceit unraveled, revealing a tapestry of betrayal and obsession. Emerson's confession echoed in the sterile room, his words a hollow echo of remorse unspoken. The truth emerged like a specter, haunting the courtroom with its chilling gaze. The trial ended, justice served in the cold light of day. Emerson's fate sealed, his existence reduced to a number in the annals of the law. But for Reed, the echoes of that night lingered, a ghostly presence that whispered in the silence of her mind. The media dubbed it the door on the left case, a headline that screamed of darkness hidden in plain sight. Psychologists probed the depths of Emerson's psyche, dissecting the twisted strands of his mind. But for Reed, the truth lay deeper, buried in the shadows of the human soul. The keys to those forgotten rooms remained, silent witnesses to a darkness that could never truly be erased. And as she walked down the corridors of her mind, she knew that some doors, once opened, could never be closed again. Story 15. The aged apartment held secrets within its walls, whispering pipes, murmuring floorboards, but the new resident sensed a difference in the sounds she heard. The footsteps were too precise, too intentional. They echoed from above, slow and deliberate, yet she resided on the topmost floor. One evening she mustered the courage to tap on the ceiling with a broomstick. The noise ceased. Silence enveloped the space. Then a single tap reverberated from inside the ceiling. Sarah Coleman chose to keep the incident of the mysterious knocking to herself. She convinced her mind it was the building settling, or perhaps a small creature seeking refuge in the attic. Despite the nightly continuation of the footsteps, she adjusted, raising the volume of her television, donning headphones to bed, anything to drown out the rhythmic footfalls traversing her ceiling in the veil of darkness. Detective Morris was introduced to the apartment when a maintenance worker stumbled upon a concealed crawlspace during routine repairs. The worker had uncovered a narrow passage behind a section of drywall in the hallway adjacent to Sarah's apartment, meant not to exist according to the building blueprints. His flashlight revealed a hidden living space, scattered food wrappers, discarded water bottles, a soiled blanket, and a small notebook. The building superintendent promptly alerted the authorities. Detective Morris, accompanied by his partner Detective Rivera, found the maintenance worker pale and trembling. "Someone has been residing within the walls," he repeated. "Someone has been watching." The notebook chronicled detailed observations of Sarah Coleman, her routine, her guests, her meals, her viewing habits, her moments of rest. The handwriting started orderly but devolved into chaos towards the end, with peculiar symbols adorning the margins. "The subject no longer responds to my commands," the final entry read. "She has chosen to disregard me. No one disregards me." Forensic teams scrutinized the crawlspace, uncovering fingerprints unmatched in any database. They unearthed an intricate network of passages integrated into the walls and ceilings of the building, some dating back decades as per structural assessments. The passages linked to 5 different apartments, but terminated in observation points, minuscule apertures camouflaged as fixtures or minor defects in only one, Sarah Coleman's. Current residents denied anything peculiar beyond the customary apartment sounds. Past inhabitants recounted a different tale. 3 previous occupants of Sarah's abode described sensations of being watched or hearing inexplicable movements. 1 departed after a mere fortnight. None divulged their encounters, fearing they'd seem paranoid. The breakthrough arose when forensics detected minuscule blood spatter in one of the crawl spaces. DNA analysis traced it to Martin Weaver, a former tenant who vanished mysteriously 4 years earlier. His disappearance had gone cold after his family filed a missing person report. Martin had dwelled in the apartment directly beneath Sarah's. Detective Morris revisited Martin's case. Neighbors disclosed Martin's complaints about noises from above his unit. He had confronted the occupant above, a reserved man named Edward who kept to himself. Shortly after, Martin vanished. Edward vacated the following month, leaving no forwarding details. Investigators delved into Edward's tenancy history, revealing a pattern. He had occupied top-floor units in 6 different apartment complexes over 2 decades, forming few social ties before vanishing without a trace. A neighbor from his 3rd residence remembered him as intense, recalling his frequent grievances about requiring silence. The investigators traced property records showcasing Edward's acquisition of secluded rural land. At the site, they stumbled upon a cabin displaying walls adorned with photographs and notes, images of residents from various apartment buildings, including Sarah Coleman and Martin Weaver, schematics of ventilation systems and structural vulnerabilities, elaborate diaries detailing specimen observations and habitat maintenance. A corkboard at the cabin's heart displayed newspaper clippings, missing persons reports, 6 of them, all former residents from buildings Edward had resided in. Beneath the board, deep grooves marred the wooden floor, hinting at repetitive dragging. Behind the cabin, cadaver dogs led investigators to freshly disturbed soil. Excavation unveiled human remains and more graves. As forensic anthropologists commenced the somber task of identifying the victims, Detective Morris revisited Sarah's building. The crawl spaces had been sealed, yet residents reported sporadic noises. During the installation of new security systems, maintenance workers stumbled upon an object tucked where the ceiling met the wall in the hallway, a fresh notebook, distinct from the initial discovery. The introductory page held a solitary line. "They uncovered my old hideaway, but not my new one." The handwriting matched the prior notebook. The final page illustrated a rough layout of Sarah's apartment with a new passage marked in red and a date for that night. Officers hastened to evacuate Sarah, only to find her residence deserted. Her phone rested on the kitchen counter. The television droned on. The shower ran. In the bathroom, the mirror fogged, revealing a finger-written message as the mist dispersed. "Look up." The ceiling panel above the shower had been removed. The search for Edward, now known as Edward Mercer, persisted. investigators identified him as a former construction worker skilled in renovations. His expertise in building structures had enabled him to craft a clandestine network of observation posts and passages. Thermal scans of Sarah's building disclosed no signs of ongoing habitation within the walls. Sarah Coleman remained missing, her case linked to other vanishings across several states. Authorities cautioned apartment managers about unsanctioned alterations in concealed spaces. The image that haunted Detective Morris the most wasn't the graves, the diaries, or even the photographs of unwitting residents. It was the vision of Sarah every night, hearing those footsteps above her in an apartment with no upper neighbor. The footsteps that ceased when she knocked and then responded. Occasionally, during nocturnal solitude at his residence, Detective Morris found himself gazing at his ceiling, listening, waiting, pondering who else might be listening alongside him. Story 16. Once upon a time, there was a town that held a secret, a house at the edge of the woods that was never mentioned. It stood solitary, shrouded in mystery, its windows dark, its porch weary from the passage of time. No one laid claim to it, and no one could recall who erected its walls. But fate took a curious turn when a band of hikers strayed too close and stumbled upon something peculiar, names etched into the wooden siding, carved deep like cryptic messages. And at the very bottom of the list, fresh and untouched by the elements, was a name that none of them recognized. Until, with a quiver in their voice, one of them whispered, "That's mine." In the dead of night, a call came through to dispatch, a routine report of trespassing. The voice on the other end belonged to Mason Wright, the leader of the hikers who had found his own name carved into the forsaken house. The responding officers anticipated a simple case of juvenile mischief, perhaps a prank gone awry, but what awaited them defied logic. Detective Sarah Keller arrived as darkness draped the forest in its cloak. Her flashlight pierced through the shadows, revealing the weathered front of the structure. The names 27 in total etched vertically on the eastern wall. Some nearly faded into obscurity, their existence barely discernible against the weathered timber. Others remained sharp, as if freshly carved. And at the very bottom, Mason Wright, the inscription still bearing traces of newly sawn wood. "I've never set foot here before," Mason protested, his breath forming wisps in the chilly air. "I cannot fathom how anyone would know my name." The investigation commenced with thorough background checks on each name listed. The findings sent a chill down the spines of the detective team. Every name belonged to an individual reported missing over the past 40 years. Some cases had grown cold with time, while others remained open and unresolved. Yet a haunting commonality emerged: all these souls had vanished while trekking alone through the woods. Forensic experts meticulously documented each carving, noting the differing depths, techniques, and weathering patterns. The oldest name, Rebecca Hansen, aligned with a missing persons case from 37 years prior. The records painted a bleak picture of a young woman who ventured into the woods and never returned, leaving behind only a lone hiking boot beside a babbling stream. Detective Keller delved into Mason's background extensively. His account remained unwavering. He bore no ties to the area beyond this very hiking expedition with his college comrades. They had selected the trail at random, guided solely by an online suggestion. Nothing in Mason's past linked him to any of the other names immortalized on the weathered wall. Attention then shifted to Mason's companions. Emily Chen, the group's photographer, provided snapshots taken during their journey. Upon scrutinizing the images, analysts unearthed something unsettling: a blurred figure lurking in the backdrop of 3 distinct photos. The silhouette resembled a tall, slender man, perpetually obscured by the dense forest foliage. "We encountered no one else on our trek," Emily maintained. we would have remembered. Detective Keller sanctioned a search of the house's interior. Though the dwelling appeared deserted with dust blanketing every surface and furniture strewn about the basement harbored a grim revelation. Personal effects belonging to the missing hikers were meticulously arranged on wooden shelves. Watches, backpacks, cameras, wallets, each item meticulously labeled with a corresponding name from the exterior wall. The forensics team toiled diligently, cataloging every artifact. Under the glare of ultraviolet light, traces of blood emerged on the concrete floor, stains accrued over the years, futilely scrubbed away by an unknown hand. Despite the absence of bodies beneath the house per ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs incessantly alerted to a dense thicket at the rear of the property. As the inquiry deepened, Detective Keller observed a shift in Mason Wright's behavior. He began recounting eerie incidents, whispers echoing outside his abode, fresh footprints leading to his doorstep but not away, shadowy figures observing from the street. A police detail was assigned to safeguard him, yet Mason's paranoia burgeoned. The breakthrough surfaced when researchers unearthed buried land records in the county archives. The house had once belonged to a reclusive huntsman named Victor Blackwood. Neighbors spoke of fleeting glimpses of him, a disconcertingly tall, gaunt figure who shunned interaction. Blackwood vanished without a trace 15 years ago, his disappearance never scrutinized by authorities. Armed with a warrant, Detective Keller delved deeper into the encompassing forest. The search party stumbled upon a network of rudimentary hunting blinds strategically placed along frequented trails. Within one blind lay a journal brimming with meticulous observations, accounts of hikers, their routes, gear, and behavioral patterns. The script mirrored that of Victor Blackwood's limited writings. The entries metamorphosed from early notations on hunting techniques for wildlife to sinister musings on humans as prey, their routines, vulnerabilities, and methodologies for acquisition. The concluding pages cataloged elaborate narratives of stalking, each victim immortalized on the wall, delineating the intricate process of target selection. A manhunt for Blackwood was launched across multiple jurisdictions. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging combed the woods, while tactical squads meticulously scoured every nook and cranny. Yet the elusive suspect remained a phantom. Mason Wright ceased responding to calls. Officers dispatched to his residence discovered the door unlocked, the rooms vacant. On the bedroom wall, freshly engraved, lingered a chilling phrase: "The hunter becomes the hunted." The quest for Mason persisted fruitlessly for weeks. Then, during a secondary sweep of Blackwood's abode, forensics unearthed a ghastly secret. Concealed behind a false partition in the basement lay a workshop replete with woodworking tools, wood preservatives, and a freshly carved wooden piece bearing a novel name awaiting its addition to the external wall. Detective Keller recognized the name immediately. It belonged to the head forensic technician who had surveyed the house during the initial inspection. The technician had called in sick that morning, unreachable by phone. Authorities erected an unceasing surveillance cordon around the house, with camera arrays documenting each approach and motion sensors vigilant for intrusions. The trap was set. 3 nights later, sensors spiked an alert. Surveillance footage captured an enigmatic figure emerging from the forest, impossibly tall, unnaturally slender, gliding with eerie grace. The figure advanced directly toward the house, seemingly unperturbed by the watchful eyes. As tactical units closed in, the cameras briefly faltered. Upon restoration, the figure had vanished into thin air. To this day, the house remains under ceaseless scrutiny. Mason Wright and the forensic technician evaporated without a trace. The investigation endures, with fresh resources mobilized as analogous disappearances plague wooded realms afar. The names etched on the wall have transmuted into a macabre legend among law enforcement circles. Some officers refuse to utter them aloud, others shun the case entirely. Local trekkers steer clear of the house, fearful that mere mention of it might consign their names to that grim roster, the names unspoken by all. Story 17. The apartment had sat in silence for months, its emptiness a shroud over the new tenant's arrival. Anticipation was low, perhaps just dust, a hint of forgotten furniture. Yet one door defied their expectations, a closet stubbornly sealed from within. When the landlord finally forced it open, the tenants braced for musty coats or discarded trinkets, but what they found chilled their bones. The walls, once pristine, now bore scars of distress. Deep, jagged lines etched into the wood, a silent testimony of struggle. And tucked away in the shadows, an ancient flip phone, its screen aglow with a lone, unread message. Detective Morgan Shaw, seasoned in the art of unraveling mysteries, felt a shiver dance down her spine at the sight before her. Not a scene of gore or violence, but a haunting whisper of confinement and fear. Forensics now, she instructed her partner, Officer Reed, who diligently captured the haunting scratches on film. And pull up the records of the previous tenants. The message on the phone simply stated, "I know what you did." The landlord, a fidgety man with perpetually moist palms, recounted how the previous tenant had vanished without a trace, leaving unpaid rent in their wake. A young woman kept to herself, disappeared about 6 months back, he muttered, avoiding the closet's gaze. Never caused a stir. Forensic analysis unveiled a tapestry of DNA within the scratches, mostly belonging to a single individual, presumably the missing tenant, Emma Caldwell, aged 28, reported absent by her employer when she ceased her routine. Yet 2 distinct DNA profiles emerged. One remained a mystery to the databases, while the other belonged to a man supposedly deceased for 2 years. This doesn't add up, Shaw pondered, her eyes fixed on the perplexing findings. Derek Mercer, a convict of assault half a decade ago, was declared dead in a tragic accident, his demise confirmed through dental records. And yet his DNA lingered fresh on the closet's walls. Emma's apartment whispered tales of interrupted existence, unopened mail, a solitary coffee mug waiting in the sink, a neatly arranged bed untouched. Phone records unveiled a narrative, regular calls with her sister abruptly ceasing. And a flurry of unknown numbers inundating her call log in the weeks leading to her vanishing. Emma hinted at a mysterious boyfriend, Officer Reed disclosed. No name given, just intense and private. Surveillance footage from a nearby store painted a vivid picture Emma's return home, shadowed by a figure in a cap, evading the camera's scrutiny. The missing link surfaced when partial fingerprints belonging to Derek Mercer were found on the closet's interior doorknob. Staged his demise, Shaw concluded. But why and how does Emma fit into his macabre puzzle? The enigmatic DNA sample led them to another cold case of a missing woman, Lynette Porter, vanished 3 years prior. Despite the trail running cold, witnesses recalled a lady matching Lynette's description frequenting Emma's abode. Shaw connected the dots while sifting through traffic footage, revealing Derek Mercer's mother's car prowling the vicinity of Emma's residence, its driver bearing Derek's stature. The investigation unraveled further, unveiling a secluded estate owned by Mercer's kin. Within the depths of a forbidding cellar, they unearthed Lynette Porter alive, yet a mere shadow of herself, held captive in conditions mirroring Emma's haunting ordeal. "He made me witness," Lynette murmured, her gaze distant. "Said I needed to grasp the fate of those who dared to flee." The evidence mounted, journals chronicling Mercer's fixation on dominance, photographs of women resembling Emma and Lynette, and most damning videos capturing Mercer coercing Emma into the suffocating closet. "She thought she could expose me," his voice echoed in the recordings. "Our secrets won't be unearthed by anyone." The manhunt for Derek Mercer spanned jurisdictions, his capture imminent. As forensic profilers crafted a chilling profile of Mercer's twisted psyche, investigators braced for the chilling truth. Mercer didn't seek mere demise, he craved suffering, relished in witnessing hope dwindle in constricted spaces. Upon his apprehension at a bustling terminal, Mercer clutched a new identity and a passage to a coastal haven. Nestled within his bag a roll of duct tape, a gleaming hunting knife, and a weathered clipping chronicling Emma's demise. During interrogation, Mercer exuded an eerie tranquility. She penned that message herself, he remarked of the phone. She desired discovery, but she wasn't worthy of salvation. The trial unveiled the intricate web Mercer spun to feign his own demise, crafting a cloak of anonymity using a homeless man's dental records matching his features. For years, he prowled incognito, targeting women resembling his inaugural victim. Emma's remains evaded discovery. Forensic whispers hinted at her eventual demise within the suffocating confines of the closet, clawing futilely at unyielding walls. The cryptic message on the phone stood as her final bid to incriminate her assailant sent from Mercer's device as she slept, preserving her truth as the battery waned. The jury swiftly rendered a verdict of guilt on all counts, sealing Mercer's fate to a life devoid of liberty. As the judge intoned the sentence, Mercer's lips curved in a subtle smile, as if a private riddle had been solved to his satisfaction alone. During the hearing, Lynette Porter addressed the court. He confined us to cramped spaces, for his mind resides there ensnared in darkness. Yet as he rots in his cell, I'll revel in the sun's embrace. The case reshaped missing persons protocols, emphasizing relationship dynamics and property scrutiny. Detective Shaw adorned her office with the closet door from Emma's, abode a poignant reminder that terror oftentimes lurks not in crimson stains, but in the fervent marks of a soul fighting for survival. Story 18. The old Polaroid held secrets within its faded edges, a portal to a birthday party long past. Among the smiles and flickering candles, a hidden enigma lingered. The daughter, inheriting a box of forgotten memories, stumbled upon it, a figure lurking in the background, shrouded in mystery. A man, cloaked in shadows on the fringe of the family gathering, unnoticed yet present in every snapshot. Sarah Winters uncovered the box while sorting through her mother's attic following the funeral. A simple label, Memories, adorned the cardboard container, concealing a trove of nostalgia tainted by an eerie presence. What should have been a comforting journey through happier times soon transformed into a descent into darkness. In the initial photo, the figure was a mere whisper, a silhouette hovering on the periphery during a childhood birthday celebration. With each subsequent picture, he crept closer, a ghostly specter blending into the background, unnoticed by all but the lens of the camera. Sarah's distress mounted as she confronted the inexplicable truth embedded in the visual timeline of her past. A trembling voice reached out to her father, seeking answers to the uninvited guest haunting their family's cherished moments. His stunned silence gave way to disbelief as he denied any knowledge of the mysterious man lurking in the shadows of their collective memories. Digital images were shared, revealing the spectral intruder to a father shaken by the inexplicable revelation. Detective Marcus Reed, a stoic presence in the face of the unknown, examined the haunting photograph spread across his desk. Raindrops danced against the window pane, casting a somber backdrop to the unfolding mystery. His seasoned gaze traced the progression of the figure, a phantom traversing the captured scenes with eerie precision, drawing closer to the unsuspecting children in each frame. Questions lingered in the air as the detective probed for answers, unraveling the enigma layer by layer. The progression of the figure through the images hinted at a sinister intent, an unseen force encroaching upon moments of innocence frozen in time. Despite efforts to identify the mysterious interloper, the truth remained elusive, a phantom eluding the grasp of conventional investigation. A breakthrough emerged from the depths of enhanced images, revealing clues long obscured by the veil of time. A scar, a ring, a reflection, all pieces of a macabre puzzle linking the spectral presence to a dark chapter in the region's history. Dental records provided a key, unlocking the identity of the shadowy figure as Robert Keller, a figure tied to unsolved disappearances shrouded in decades-old mysteries. The revelations cascaded like a chilling revelation, connecting dots across a tapestry of forgotten tragedies. Keller's sinister presence loomed over past gatherings, a malevolent force concealed within the folds of innocence. The shadows cast by his actions stretched far and wide, leaving scars upon families torn asunder by his unseen influence. As the truth unfurled, buried secrets came to light, paving the way for closure tainted by sorrow and loss. Remains unearthed near the vacation property bore witness to the grim reality concealed beneath layers of deception. The missing children, long lost to the passage of time, found a semblance of justice in the exposure of their tormentors' hidden legacy. Sarah, a lone sentinel amidst the storm of revelations, gazed at the final photo with a mixture of sadness and relief. The shadowy figure, once a spectral specter haunting her past, now stood exposed in the harsh light of truth. The box of memories became a repository of pain and closure, a testament to the unseen dangers lurking within the confines of captured moments. As she sealed the box, preserving the evidence of a dark chapter in her family's history, Sarah whispered a silent prayer for the souls touched by the malevolent presence that had haunted their lives. The figure in the photographs, once a silent observer of joyous occasions, now stood as a testament to the enduring power of hidden truths, waiting to be unearthed from the depths of forgotten memories. Story 19. The worn envelope, its edges tinged with age, held a fresh stamp, as if just whisked into the world's grasp. The detective gingerly unfolded its contents, revealing a solitary sheet of paper adorned with a message typed in a hurried, jagged script. "I am sorry for what I did." The paper exuded a faint dampness, carrying with it a metallic scent that lingered in the air. A reddish smear along the bottom edge caught their attention, a stain that wasn't mere ink. Detective Sarah Morgan carefully secured the letter in an evidence bag, her gloved hands moving with practiced precision. The forensics team's findings confirmed her suspicions the reddish blot was human blood, matching the DNA from an unsolved homicide that had plagued the department for years. The victim, a young journalist named Rebecca Warren, had been discovered in her apartment, bearing multiple stab wounds. Her laptop was missing, her notes strewn across the floor, hinting that her demise might be linked to an investigative piece she was pursuing. Despite exhaustive efforts, the case had grown cold until the arrival of this mysterious letter at the precinct, addressed simply to Homicide Division. Scant fingerprints adorned the paper and envelope as if the sender had taken care to conceal their identity. The postmark offered a glimmer of hope, a new trail to follow after months of stagnation. Morgan gathered her team in the dimly lit briefing room, the walls adorned with images of crime scenes, timelines, and suspect profiles that had yielded no answers. She affixed the image of the letter at the heart of the board, declaring, "This changes everything." Her partner, Detective James Chen, scrutinized the letter thoughtfully. "Or it's a guise," he mused. "The blood, a dramatic touch to play with our perceptions." The unique imprint pattern on the paper led the forensics team to a typewriter model long out of production, a relic from the past that still held a whisper of presence. They set out to trace its origins, reaching out to antique aficionados and collectors far and wide. As the investigation gained traction, they delved into Rebecca's life, unearthing her relentless pursuit of truth and justice. Her inquiries had delved into a wealthy family entwined in local politics, embroiled in a web of deceit and power struggles. Rebecca's boyfriend, Michael Barnes, once a pillar of support, now bore the weight of unease as he confessed. Rebecca feared she was being followed. She knew too much. A second letter arrived, echoing the first in its ominous tone. The secret spilled onto the page, revealing a chilling narrative of betrayal and greed. The trail led to the opulent mansion of the deceased patriarch, where suspicions loomed over the eldest son, Richard. His collection of antiquities included vintage typewriters, a detail that raised eyebrows. The breakthrough came with the discovery of fibers on the envelopes, linking back to custom stationery owned by the youngest daughter, Alina. A hidden cache in Richard's home unveiled a chilling tableau evidence meticulously gathered, pointing to a sinister plot. The threads connecting Richard and Michael unraveled, exposing a pact born of greed and desperation. Michael's confession laid bare the truth, a tragedy born of misplaced trust and treachery. Alina emerged as an unexpected ally, her recording sealing Richard's fate. The courtroom saga unfolded, a tapestry woven with deceit and redemption. Richard's protests crumbled under the weight of incriminating evidence, leading to a swift verdict. As justice prevailed, Detective Morgan offered solace to Rebecca's grieving parents, a small solace amidst unfathomable loss. The blood-stained letters stood as a testament to the frailty of deception, a reminder that even the most meticulously crafted schemes bear the mark of truth. Rebecca Warren's legacy endured as a cautionary tale, a whisper in the night that no secret remains buried forever, for guilt is a relentless pursuer, unmasking even the most cunning of culprits. Story 20. The fresh occupants brushed off the oddity of the old intercom crackling late at night as just a quirk. It was a relic from a bygone era, revamped but left to fade into obscurity. But one fateful night, the husband's curiosity got the best of him. He pressed the button, and a faint whisper crackled through the ancient speaker. "Why did you come back?" Startled, he recoiled, his hands trembling. His wife, peering over his shoulder, softly murmured, "I never said that." Nestled amidst ancient oak trees, the Victorian manor exuded an air of mystery, its weathered facade a stark contrast to the modernized interior. Daniel and Meredith Parker, drawn to history, had snapped up the property at an unexpectedly modest price, despite the real estate agent's uneasy demeanor during the tour. The intercom system, a charming vintage feature that linked all rooms, had captivated the Parkers with its nostalgic allure. Detective Sarah Reeves arrived at the property, the gravel crunching beneath her unmarked car's tires. Initially reported as a possible break-in, the dispatcher's tone hinted at a more intricate tale. Daniel Parker, his complexion ashen in the dim glow of the porch light, greeted her at the entrance. It all started with the intercom, he recounted, guiding Detective Reeves through the grand foyer. First, it was just static, then whispers, and eventually complete sentences. My wife thought I was imagining it until she heard it too. In the living room, Meredith sat stiffly on an antique sofa, her hands tightly wrapped around a steaming mug left untouched. We uncovered something behind the wall, she divulged without preamble. Daniel wanted to expand the kitchen pantry, and when he tore down the drywall, her voice trailed off. Concealed behind the wall, shrouded in decaying plastic, lay a small leather-bound journal. With gloved hands, Detective Reeves delicately turned the brittle pages. The elegant yet frantic script belonged to Alina, the presumed previous resident. Her entries chronicled escalating suspicions of her husband Vincent's malevolent intentions. The last entry dates back 30 years, Daniel clarified. After that, silence. The previous owners mentioned purchasing the house from an elderly man who had relocated to a retirement community. Further investigation unveiled that Vincent and Alina Blackwood had indeed owned the property. Records indicated that Vincent sold the house shortly after Alina's alleged departure, with no official divorce or change of address. Alina's financial trail went cold after the final journal entry. Detective Reeves mobilized a team to comb through the property thoroughly. Ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies beneath the garden shed's concrete foundation. As the investigators breached the aged concrete, the truth emerged in the form of human remains. Forensic analysis confirmed the skeleton as that of a woman in her 40s, bearing signs of blunt force trauma to the skull. A gold wedding band with the inscription, "To Alina, my eternal love," was found among the remains. The evidence swiftly mounted against Vincent Blackwood. Despite his advanced age and residence in a care facility, his mind was sharp enough to comprehend the charges. When confronted with the damning proof, his response sent shivers down Detective Reeves' spine. "She wouldn't stop talking," Vincent uttered in an unsettlingly calm tone, "constantly chattering through that cursed intercom, checking on me, questioning me. I disconnected it, but she rewired it herself, always wanting to reach me, no matter where I was in the house. Vacant-eyed, he added, I just craved silence." During his confession, Vincent revealed the meticulous fabrication of Alina's abandonment, even sending fabricated postcards to neighbors from various locations. He had dwelled in the house for years, treading daily over the concrete concealing his wife's remains. The trial was swift, with Vincent pleading guilty to murder. The presiding judge remarked on the premeditated nature of the crime and the decades-long web of deceit. Daniel and Meredith eventually sold the house, unable to endure its grim past. Before departing, they held a poignant memorial for Alina in the restored garden. The intercom system was dismantled by subsequent owners during renovations. Workers reported hearing static and murmurs during the removal, attributing it to interference from their tools. Detective Reeves revisited the Blackwood case file before its archival. As she closed the manila folder, she pondered how the house itself had unraveled its dark secret across time. The wheels of justice had finally caught up with Vincent Blackwood, all thanks to Alina's persistent voice. Local law enforcement dubbed the case the house that answered back. On her homeward route, Detective Reeves would slow down near the property, window cracked open, attuned to any whispers carried on the breeze. Story 21. Renovations always have a way of unveiling hidden treasures, both tangible and intangible. Old relics of the past, forgotten whispers of bygone eras. In the midst of Sarah and Michael's endeavor to breathe new life into their Victorian-era home, a peculiar discovery awaited beneath the floorboards, a carefully folded letter, its paper aged and its ink a whisper of what it once was. The cryptic message etched on the fragile sheet sent a shiver down their spines. Don't trust the one who knocked. Before the weight of those words could fully settle, 3 sharp raps reverberated through the stillness of the house, casting a veil of unease over the scene. Detective Alina Reed embarked on a quest to unravel the enigmatic tale that clung to the walls of the old dwelling. The floorboards lay bare, exposing secrets long kept hidden in the shadows. With precision honed by years of investigative work, Reed delicately retrieved the note, mindful of the inadvertent contamination by its previous handlers. As Sarah and Michael recounted the chilling encounter, genuine fear flickered in their eyes, prompting Reed to delve deeper into the murky waters of the house's history. The threads of the past led Reed to the Hargrove family, the former guardians of the house. Decades of memories lingered within its walls, intertwined with the fading echoes of lives once lived. Franklin and Margaret Hargrove had left behind a legacy shrouded in mystery, prompting Reed to explore the depths of their intertwined fates. Franklin, a revered teacher turned recluse, harbored secrets that not even his former students could fathom. And Margaret, a woman haunted by the specter of a relentless collector, bore the weight of a truth too chilling to confront. Through meticulous research and poignant interviews, Reed uncovered a tale of debts unpaid and shadows long cast. The phantom figure of Victor Mercer, a lone shark cloaked in darkness, emerged from the depths of obscurity, his fate entwined with the Hargroves in ways unforeseen. The revelation of a hidden skeleton beneath the house's foundation painted a grim picture of a past stained with blood and betrayal, where the line between victim and perpetrator blurred into obscurity. Margaret's diaries, unearthed from the attic's depths, bore witness to her silent suffering, the echoes of her torment resonating through the pages. 3 knocks, a haunting refrain that echoed through the corridors of her mind, a reminder of a past she could never escape. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, justice, though belated, found its way to those long denied closure. The house, now a vessel of untold secrets, stood as a silent witness to the tragedies that unfolded within its walls. Sarah and Michael, unable to bear the weight of its haunted past, relinquished their ties to the dwelling, leaving it abandoned to the whims of time. In the hushed whispers of the night, locals spoke of phantom echoes, 3 distinct knocks that pierced the silence, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within. And so the note, a silent sentinel of a bygone era, remained locked away, its message a chilling testament to the secrets that lay buried beneath the surface. The legacy of the Hargroves, intertwined with the shadows of the past, whispered of a truth too harrowing to fully comprehend. Some mysteries, as Detective Reed penned in her final report, defy resolution, their echoes resonating through the corridors of time, a reminder that not all secrets are meant to be unearthed. Story 22, in a quaint town nestled amidst ancient trees, a young woman felt the flutter of anticipation as she prepared to welcome her first child. The nursery, with its walls cloaked in a faded blue hue, held a silent history of whispers and secrets within its paint-laden layers. With delicate strokes, she began to cover the tired color with a fresh coat of pristine white, seeking to create a serene space for her impending arrival. As the brush glided over the wall, a mysterious revelation unfolded before her eyes. Hidden beneath the new paint emerged faint letters like ghostly echoes from the past. With each passing moment, the message etched beneath the surface grew clearer, commanding attention with its cryptic warning, "Don't let it hear you." A shiver danced down her spine, urging her to take a step back and truly observe her surroundings. It was then that she noticed them, the tiny handprints imprinted in the fresh paint, positioned unnaturally high on the wall, beyond the reach of any ordinary child. A sense of unease crept into her heart as she realized that something inexplicable lurked within the nursery's confines. The unveiling of this eerie discovery marked the genesis of what would later be known as the Whispering House case, a chilling enigma that would envelop the tranquil neighborhood in a cloak of dread. The young couple, unaware of the dark history veiled by the Victorian-style home they had recently acquired, found themselves thrust into a labyrinth of enigmatic occurrences. Detective Sarah Klein, a steadfast investigator with a keen eye for unraveling mysteries, arrived at the Morgan residence, her presence a beacon of reassurance amid the palpable tension that hung in the air. The expectant mother, her weariness evident in the circles beneath her eyes, recounted the harrowing revelation of the hidden message and the spectral handprints that defied reason. With a steady resolve, Detective Klein delved into the shadows of the historic abode, her footsteps echoing faintly against the weathered floorboards that bore witness to decades of silent secrets. In the nursery, where the unfinished wall bore the cryptic warning, She pondered the inexplicable nature of the phenomena that had gripped the unsuspecting occupants. Returning to the precinct, Detective Klein embarked on a quest to unearth the veiled truths that lay dormant within the property's murky past. Through meticulous research and dogged determination, she unearthed a tapestry of unsettling events that had unfolded within the walls of the house. The threads of history intertwined with malice and betrayal, weaving a tale of darkness that spanned generations. The specter of Eleanor Blackwood, a mysterious widow who had once presided over an orphanage within the very confines of the house, cast a shadow over the investigation. As the detective pieced together fragments of the past, a sinister pattern emerged, a series of inexplicable incidents that had plagued families who had once called the house their home. Whispers in the night, playful laughter that echoed through empty corridors, and spectral scrawlings that materialized upon the walls, all manifestations of a malevolent force that defied comprehension. The enigmatic message that surfaced with each repainting of the nursery wall served as a chilling testament to the lingering presence of a tragedy long buried in the annals of time. The handwriting, traced back to Eleanor Blackwood herself, bore witness to a dark legacy of greed and desolation. In a bold move to unearth the buried secrets that lay beneath the house, Detective Klein persuaded the current occupants to allow a thorough investigation of the basement. The revelation that followed sent shockwaves through the community as the ground-penetrating radar unearthed a grim tableau of hidden truths. Beneath the cold concrete floor lay the silent witnesses of a bygone era, 5 sets of child-sized remains, a grim testament to the horrors that had transpired within the confines of the house. Each child bore a small pendant engraved with their name, a poignant reminder of lives extinguished in the name of a twisted ambition. As the investigation reached its grim conclusion, the nursery walls, once a canvas for unspeakable horrors, bore witness to a final act of closure. The handprints that glowed in the darkness, revealed by the luminol's ethereal light, served as a haunting reminder of lives cut short and innocence betrayed. Though justice was served for the victims of the past, an unsettling aura lingered within the walls of the house, a spectral presence that defied explanation. The nursery, a silent witness to untold horrors, stood as a monument to the darkness that dwelled within the human heart. And so the house stood empty, its corridors echoing with the whispers of the departed. The pregnant couple, unwilling to set foot within its tainted confines, left behind the remnants of a life interrupted by forces beyond their understanding. Detective Klein, her final report a testament to the inscrutable nature of the case, kept a solitary photograph, a stark reminder of the inescapable legacy of the Whispering House. In its luminous glow, the handprints of the past beckoned from the shadows, a silent plea for remembrance in a world haunted by the echoes of the forgotten. Story 23. The realtor's listing made no mention of a basement, and the blueprints offered no clue to its existence. Yet when the family peeled back the worn carpet, a hidden door revealed itself, its handle weighed down by years of neglect. With combined effort, they forced it open, releasing a musty breath of stale air, heavy with the scent of damp earth. Descending the steps into the darkness, they anticipated storage, but were met with a solitary chair illuminated by a swaying light bulb. And on the wall behind it, a chilling row of photographs, familiar faces, captured within the confines of their own home. The Mercer family had settled into the suburban house during a winter of early darkness and barren trees standing sentinel against the cold sky. The aged structure exuded character, a history they had not bargained for entwined with their own present in unexpected ways. Detective Sarah Connors arrived at the scene, the crime unit already at work securing the area with fluttering yellow tape. Mrs. Mercer's shaken voice had alerted them to what lay hidden beneath their living room floor. "We must document everything before further exploration," Connors directed, gloving her hands with precision. Camera flashes punctuated the stairwell as the forensic team meticulously captured the eerie scene. The basement, akin to a standard bedroom, held only a bolted chair at its center beneath the harsh glow of a lone bulb. Yet it was the chronological array of 37 photographs that seized their attention. "These date back weeks," Connor's partner remarked, noting timestamps on the prints. "Look here, Mrs. Mercer sleeping, Mr. Mercer at the table, the children in their rooms." The absence of forced entry, stolen items, or triggered security systems left a void of privacy and security for the family. Forensic analysis revealed fingerprints, mostly belonging to former owners who had passed through the property's doors in quick succession, each departing within a year, driven by undisclosed reasons. As the investigation delved deeper, inconsistencies in property records unveiled a trail of altered blueprints, withdrawn permits, and redacted inspection reports. The contractor from years past, visibly shaken at the sight of the basement photos, adamantly denied the existence of such a room during his renovations. A hidden memory card within the light fixture yielded a trove of images, showcasing not just the Mercers but a lineage of families, their intimate moments surreptitiously captured. The discovery of audio recordings buried in the basement hinted at a sophisticated surveillance system, meticulously monitoring the residents' every move. Connors, her voice edged with urgency, ordered a thorough search for hidden devices throughout the house. Behind the photographs, a secretive passage led to a monitoring station, complete with a journal detailing the lives of former inhabitants, the work of Edward Kelvin, the house's enigmatic builder who had vanished without a trace. In a crawlspace between the bedrooms, Kelvin was found, his body a ghostly remnant of a life spent in the shadows of his creation. Detached and delusional, he spoke of the families as mere subjects in his grand observation experiment, claiming ownership over those who had unknowingly shared his space. The families, shattered by the revelations, fled the house, leaving behind memories tainted by the realization of their perpetual surveillance. Kelvin's trial uncovered the intricate network of hidden rooms and observation points within the house, exposing the residents' unwitting participation in his voyeuristic project. Unfazed by the verdict, Kelvin retreated into his fractured mind, forever lost within the phantom corridors of his design. The house was razed to the ground, but the families remained haunted by the specter of their violated privacy, forever questioning the sanctity of the walls that once sheltered them. The silence of their new abodes echoed with the unspoken question, were they truly alone, or had they always been under the watchful gaze of unseen eyes? Story 24, the old costume shop with its fading charm, was nearing its final days, marked by the sale of forgotten treasures. Among the remnants of disguises and memories, a woman drawn by an inexplicable pull reached for a mask hidden on a dusty shelf. Its delicate features held an eerie lifelike quality that stirred a sense of unease within her. Placing it on the counter for purchase, the cashier hesitated, his voice barely a whisper, "That's not ours." Puzzled, she searched for a price tag, only to find none. Without a second thought, she decided to take it home, unaware of the haunting journey that awaited her. As night descended, a soft, rustling sound roused her from slumber, a gentle whisper of fabric shifting through the darkness. Her heart quickened as she realized the mask was no longer resting on the dresser where she had left it. Instead, it sat perched on her nightstand, its gaze fixed upon her, a silent sentinel in the shadows. The woman, known as Catherine Reed, was discovered by a concerned neighbor the following morning. The open door beckoned the morning light into the otherwise dim interior, revealing a chilling scene that would perplex investigators for years to come. Catherine's lifeless form lay upon the bedroom floor, the mysterious mask nowhere to be seen. Detective Morgan arrived at the scene, where forensics diligently captured every detail with their cameras. The rhythmic clicks of the shutters echoed against the backdrop of subdued voices. Observing the room, the detective noted the absence of forced entry, a seemingly ordinary setting disrupted by the inexplicable tragedy that had unfolded. Examining the room, the detective's keen eyes caught subtle nuances: a partially open drawer, a lipstick-stained water glass on the nightstand. Amidst the mundane, the palpable aura of fear lingered, frozen in the features of the deceased woman. The medical examiner, with a solemn demeanor, puzzled over the cause of Catherine's demise. Despite the lack of visible wounds or signs of struggle, the frozen terror etched on her face spoke volumes. Something terrified her to her very core, the detective whispered, a shiver running down her spine. Catherine had led a quiet existence as an art appraiser, renowned for her meticulous eye and unwavering dedication to authenticity. Colleagues spoke of her unique ability to discern the slightest discrepancies, a talent that now seemed to have led her down a dark path. Revolutionary evidence emerged when microscopic fibers, foreign and enigmatic, were discovered on Catherine's fingertips. A peculiar blend of human hair and an unidentified organic substance, defying modern analysis, hinted at a darker truth lurking beneath the surface. Delving deeper into the mystery, the detective unearthed a pattern of similar deaths spanning decades, each victim linked by the acquisition of a peculiar mask and the subsequent manifestation of unbridled terror. A retired detective, well acquainted with such enigmatic cases, shared a chilling revelation. Inside each mask lay ancient symbols hinting at a ritual steeped in the transference of souls, a malevolent force seeking new vessels in a cycle of death and rebirth. A hidden journal discovered in Catherine's apartment unveiled the extent of her torment. Descriptions of a malevolent presence, the mask's sinister movements, and the ominous markings within painted a harrowing picture of a cursed artifact seeking its next victim. The detective pieced together the puzzle, connecting the dots between Catherine's research, the peculiar fibers, and the macabre history of the masks. The cause of death was finally determined: a fatal heart attack induced by sheer terror, leaving a gaping void in the wake of unanswered questions. Surveillance footage unveiled a ghastly revelation: a figure shrouded in darkness, donning the ominous mask, moving with a twisted mimicry of Catherine's essence. A phantom presence haunting the living, a harbinger of dread in the dead of night. Despite tireless efforts to trace the mask's elusive trail, it vanished into obscurity, only to resurface months later in a distant vintage shop, slipping through the grasp of justice once more. The cycle continued, unabated by time or logic, a malevolent force lurking in the shadows, awaiting its next unwitting host. As the case remained officially unsolved, the detective safeguarded Catherine's journal as a grim testament to a truth too unsettling for the light of day. In the quiet of night, she too felt the weight of unseen eyes upon her, a chilling reminder of the mask's insidious quest for souls willing or otherwise. And so the mask lingers in the shadows, a silent predator biding its time, waiting for the next fateful encounter. When it resurfaces, as it inevitably will, another soul will awaken to the eerie whisper of impending doom, a prelude to a nightmare from which there may be no waking. Story 25, The Mystery of Reflections. She cleared the mist from the mirror, gazing at her own reflection. Everything seemed normal at first glance, her face, her attire. Yet a subtle unease crept over her the longer she stared. A flicker caught in the corner of her eye, a movement that defied her own. When she turned away, her reflection remained motionless, watching her with silent intent. This unsettling encounter marked the beginning of Rebecca Thorne's enigmatic journey, a tale that would baffle investigators and linger in the minds of a quiet community for years to come. Rebecca resided in a modest apartment nestled within a serene suburban area, her solitary existence shrouded in routine and precision. Known by acquaintances as methodical and reserved, she led a life of solitude, maintaining polite interactions with her neighbors while keeping to herself. As a diligent data analyst for a mid-sized company, her days were structured by meticulous patterns and predictable rhythms. No one could have foreseen that she would soon become entangled in one of the most perplexing mysteries of the decade. The first signs were subtle, easily dismissed. Objects in Rebecca's home began to shift, inexplicably small rearrangements that hinted at an unseen presence. A coffee mug relocated, books shuffled, her toothbrush inexplicably displaced. Initially attributing these anomalies to fatigue and long hours immersed in her work, Rebecca brushed off the peculiar occurrences as mere lapses in memory. Detective Marion Shaw's interest was piqued when Rebecca, after enduring weeks of these disturbances, finally reached out to the authorities. Initial assessments suggested no criminal activity, perhaps a matter better suited for mental health professionals than law enforcement. Shaw documented the concerns raised by Rebecca but consigned the case to the back burner among a stack of lower priority incidents. There was no tangible evidence, Shaw later recounted. No signs of forced entry, no missing items. Just a woman plagued by an unsettling feeling within her own home. The pivotal moment arrived with the bathroom mirror incident. During her subsequent interaction with law enforcement, Rebecca recounted the disquieting experience in vivid detail, the sensation of her reflection moving independently, the persistent feeling of being observed even in solitude. This time, she provided concrete proof, footage captured by a security camera she had installed at her front door. The chilling recording unveiled a revelation that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned officers. The grainy video depicted Rebecca departing for work in the morning, only to witness, 20 minutes later, a figure identical to her entering the apartment using a key. Forensic scrutiny of the footage revealed no signs of tampering or digital manipulation. The doppelganger moved with an unsettling resemblance to Rebecca, clad in her attire and carrying her distinctive leather bag. Yet according to time-stamped records from her workplace security system, Rebecca had already checked into her office building miles away. "We are facing a doppelganger scenario," Detective Shaw disclosed to her superiors. "Someone who has meticulously studied Ms. Thorne and replicated her with uncanny precision." The investigation escalated as fingerprint analyses within the apartment yielded only Rebecca's prints, with no trace of foreign DNA. Neighbors reported mundane observations, noting nothing unusual save for Rebecca's routine comings and goings. Mrs. Keller, a nearby resident, mentioned a peculiar encounter where she greeted Rebecca upon her return home, receiving no response, an anomaly that raised mild concern but fell short of alarm. Rebecca commenced documenting the escalating disturbances, noting a cascade of subtle alterations within her living space. Vanishing food items, inexplicable online searches, and unsettling selfies on her phone, all bearing her likeness yet devoid of her memory. Some self-portraits captured an eerie discrepancy in her expression, a subtle distortion in her visage that unsettled her deeply. "I feel as though I am descending into madness," she confided to Detective Shaw during their subsequent meeting. "Or perhaps someone is orchestrating a facade to drive me to the brink." A breakthrough emerged when investigators discerned a pattern in the security footage. The doppelganger only infiltrated Rebecca's abode during specific absences: her therapy sessions, yoga classes, Sunday grocery runs, predetermined activities with predictable durations. "Someone has meticulously mapped out your routine," Shaw elucidated. "This is no random intrusion, but a targeted campaign of surveillance and mimicry." A forensic psychologist posited a chilling theory, suggesting a fixation on Rebecca's identity, a fixation that transcended mere imitation and delved into a sinister desire to assume her very existence. Such cases, though rare, were documented in the annals of psychological studies. The perpetrator, often driven by a fractured psyche, fixated on a victim embodying traits they coveted: stability, beauty, success. The investigation honed in on a former colleague of Rebecca's, Lily Winters, who had been terminated for displaying escalating erratic behavior. Lily, who had shared a workspace with Rebecca, had often remarked on their perceived similarities. With a warrant secured, Detective Shaw and her team combed through Lily's residence, unearthing a chilling revelation that elevated the case from disconcerting to nightmarish proportions. One room within Lily's dwelling had been transformed into a shrine-like replica of Rebecca's bedroom. The walls were festooned with a multitude of photographs capturing Rebecca's every move, entries into her apartment, shopping excursions, social gatherings, all clandestinely documented. A wardrobe stocked with clones of Rebecca's attire, a vanity adorned with cosmetics mirroring her preferred brands, and meticulous notes detailing her gestures, speech patterns, and daily routines. The most damning evidence lay in the practice videos discovered. Lily had meticulously recorded herself emulating Rebecca's gait, mannerisms, and expressions. The progression was evident: clumsy attempts evolving into near indistinguishable mimicry of the genuine article. "She aspired to become me," a shaken Rebecca murmured upon viewing the evidence. "Not merely imitate, but erase me altogether." Forensic scrutiny unveiled a cache of sophisticated tools for replicating keys and cloning electronic access cards. Lily had orchestrated an intricate system to monitor Rebecca's movements, including a meticulously curated calendar predicting her every move. Yet amidst the labyrinthine evidence lay an enigma: Lily's ultimate objective remained shrouded in ambiguity. Journals recovered from her abode contained disjointed entries vacillating between first and third person, oscillating between references to Rebecca as me and her within the same paragraph. The final, unsettling entry forewarned: "Soon, only one of us shall remain. The stronger iteration shall prevail." As authorities moved to apprehend Lily, she had vanished without a trace. Her residence bore signs of abrupt departure: drawers ajar, certain technological apparatus missing. A nationwide manhunt ensued, while Rebecca was ushered into protective custody, relocated to an undisclosed secure haven under constant surveillance. For 3 tense weeks, every locale associated with her former existence underwent vigilant monitoring. Yet Lily remained elusive, her disappearance casting a pall of uncertainty over the investigation. The narrative took a chilling turn when a security guard at Rebecca's former workplace reported a peculiar sighting. Rebecca had allegedly been spotted entering the premises despite being on authorized leave. Security footage validated the claim. A figure mirroring Rebecca had accessed the building using a valid ID card, proceeded to her former workstation and meticulously rifled through her files before departing. Meanwhile, the real Rebecca, ensconced within the confines of a safeguarded sanctuary, remained beyond reach. The implications crystallized with stark clarity. Lily had not fled, she had executed her audacious gambit, assuming Rebecca's identity, seamlessly stepping into her existence while the genuine article lingered in seclusion. The case lingered in limbo, officially unresolved. Lily Winters eluded capture, while Rebecca Thorne forged a new identity far from the prying eyes of her doppelganger. Detective Shaw preserved a photograph on her desk, a striking juxtaposition of two eerily similar women. One bore the likeness of Rebecca Thorne, the other that of Lily Winters. Occasionally she scrutinized their features, seeking nuances that demarcated one from the other. "What truly unnerves me," Shaw often imparted to rookie investigators, "is not the prospect of someone mirroring your appearance or voice. It is the insidious desire to supplant you entirely, to obliterate your essence in the pursuit of assumed identity. Our sense of self is not merely an external facade, but a safeguarded core, its worth only realized in the face of those who covet it." Story 26. The Age Department exuded a sense of history, its time-worn features echoing with whispers of the past. The heating system emitted a low, rhythmic groan, the pipes rattling in a familiar symphony of antiquity. It was all part of the building's character, or so she thought. But then something changed. A voice, barely audible yet undeniably distinct, floated through the vents, breaking the silence like a gentle breeze. It wasn't the typical background noise of neighbors going about their day. It was a whisper, calling out to her, invoking her name in a soft, haunting tone. Intrigued and unsettled, she leaned in closer, pressing her ear against the vent, her heart quickening its pace. A cold breath brushed past her cheek, almost teasingly, before the voice spoke again, this time more directly. "I know you can hear me." Detective Morgan Shaw stood poised in the heart of the empty apartment, her gaze fixed on the rusted vent cover that had been pried open. The forensics team moved with precision around her, capturing every detail with their cameras, the flashes illuminating the shadows that clung to the walls. The missing woman, Alina Reeves, had been absent for a week before the stench caught the attention of the building's manager. What awaited them within the ventilation system defied logic. She mentioned hearing voices through the vents, Officer Patel relayed, his voice carrying a sense of solemnity as he read from his notes. But the building management dismissed her claims, attributing them to the aging infrastructure's quirks. Kneeling beside the vent, Shaw observed the telltale signs of struggle along its edges, the deep scratches indicating a desperate attempt to break free from within. As she traced the marks, a picture of fear and confinement began to take shape in her mind. Alina, a beloved kindergarten teacher known for her nurturing spirit and vibrant houseplants, had left behind a void that echoed through the community. Her classroom remained adorned with drawings and well-wishes from her students, a poignant reminder of her absence. Her sister, in a voice tinged with sorrow, recounted Alina's descent into paranoia in the days leading up to her disappearance, attributing it to the stress of her job. Examining the apartment anew, Shaw noticed subtle details that hinted at a presence unseen. The meticulously made bed, the untouched coffee mug, the chair positioned strategically beneath the vent as if awaiting a listener. Each element whispered of a narrative untold, a story woven within the walls. The forensic findings painted a chilling picture. Fibers matching Alina's clothing stuck in the vent, an unidentified fingerprint on the inside of the cover, and haunting audio recordings retrieved from Alina's phone, all pieces of a puzzle that led to a dark revelation. The history of the building unraveled like a thread, weaving tales of former tenants plagued by unseen terrors. Reports of voices in the walls, hallucinations induced by carbon monoxide, and a shadowy figure named Harold Weber, the enigmatic building superintendent with keys to every door. A hidden passage discovered in Aliner's bathroom opened a portal to a clandestine world within the building's structure, a narrow corridor harboring remnants of a clandestine existence. A flashlight, a water bottle, food wrappers a silent testimony to a voyeuristic presence lurking in the shadows. Weber's meticulously organized computer files exposed a web of intrusion and obsession, each folder a glimpse into the lives of those he watched from the shadows. His digital journal spoke of a twisted connection, a delusion that blurred the lines between reality and nightmare. As the truth unfolded, Weber's facade of calmness cracked, revealing a sinister truth hidden beneath his composed exterior. His arrest marked the end of a reign of terror that had remained concealed within the building's walls for far too long. Aliner's fate, sealed by the whispers that lured her into the labyrinthine vents, served as a grim reminder of the darkness that dwelled within the seemingly ordinary facade of the apartment building. The families of past tenants emerged, sharing stories of unease and loss, painting a collective portrait of a community scarred by a malevolent force. The trial that followed laid bare Weber's twisted psyche, his defense of insanity clashing with the prosecution's evidence of calculated malice. The verdict, swift and resolute, echoed through the courtroom, sealing Weber's fate with a chilling finality. As the echoes of the trial faded, a somber hush descended upon the vacant apartment building. Despite attempts at renewal and rejuvenation, the whispers persisted, carried on the drafts that swept through the aging vents. The ghostly murmur of voices lingered, a haunting reminder of a chapter best left undisturbed. And so the building stood, a silent witness to the secrets buried within its walls, a testament to the enduring legacy of a malevolent presence that whispered through the ages. Story 27. The ancient library faced its fate of demolition, its walls echoing with the sounds of progress. The workers toiled diligently, nearing the end of their task when, by a stroke of fate, one stumbled upon a hidden latch nestled within a dusty bookshelf. With a gentle click, the bookshelf swung open, unveiling a secret passage shrouded in darkness, beckoning with a mysterious allure. The air within the hidden room was heavy, thick with the weight of time that had stood still for decades. A solitary chair stood in the center, its presence commanding attention as it remained bolted to the floor, a silent witness to untold stories. Etched repeatedly upon the walls, a haunting message whispered in the dim light, "I am still here." The foreman overseeing the demolition, sensing an unsettling aura permeating the hidden chamber, swiftly contacted the authorities. What had begun as a routine task now veered into the realm of the unknown, drawing the attention of Detective Morgan Walsh, a seasoned investigator well-versed in the enigmatic nature of human mysteries. Standing at the threshold of the hidden room, Walsh's flashlight pierced the darkness, revealing the cryptic message that adorned the walls like a ghostly confession. "Secure the scene," Walsh commanded, his voice resonating in the confined space. "Let no one disturb a single thing until forensics arrives." As the forensic team delved into the eerie room, uncovering traces of the past embedded in the chair and etched into the walls, a chilling realization began to take shape. Hair and fibers intertwined within the chair, while blood and skin cells lingered in the scratches on the wall, hinting at a story of captivity and struggle. The history of the library unfurled like a tapestry of intrigue, woven with threads of the Harrington family's legacy. Once revered members of the community, the Harringtons had bequeathed the library to the public following the mysterious disappearance of their daughter, Rebecca. Her vanishing, a puzzle unsolved, had cast a shadow over the family for years. As the investigation deepened, a disturbing connection emerged between the hidden room and the tragic tale of Rebecca's fate. The chair's design hinted at confinement, a silent witness to untold horrors that had transpired within the chamber's walls. Maxwell Harrington, Rebecca's uncle and family patriarch, loomed at the center of the unfolding mystery, his actions veiled in shadows of deceit. Through meticulous probing into the family's past, a sinister truth began to surface. The DNA evidence recovered from the hidden room matched that of Rebecca, painting a harrowing portrait of imprisonment and betrayal. Maxwell's carefully constructed facade crumbled in the face of undeniable proof, revealing the depths of his depravity. In a secluded coastal community, Maxwell's composed veneer shattered under the weight of his guilt as he confessed to the heinous crimes committed in the name of preserving a tainted legacy. Rebecca's fate, once shrouded in uncertainty, now stood starkly revealed a tragic tale of familial betrayal and unspeakable horrors. The excavation beneath the hidden room unearthed long-buried secrets, laying bare the bones of a life cut short by treachery. The Harrington family, gripped by a somber realization of their own complicity, bore witness to the reckoning of a past long buried but never forgotten. As the dust settled and justice prevailed, the library stood as a monument to lost innocence and the enduring power of truth. Flowers left at its entrance whispered of remembrance and closure, a tribute to a life extinguished too soon yet immortalized in the echoes of a hidden room where a haunting message lingered: "I am still here." In the quiet of the night, as the world drifted into slumber, the library stood as a silent guardian of secrets, its walls echoing with the whispers of the past, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the solace of justice served.